Greetings and salutations. You've successfully arrived at the Bloody Disgusting Network. Coming up next is something indescribable, tantalizing, and mind-numbing. Enjoy.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome yet again to the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast from Consequence of Sound. My name is Stutterin' Randall Colburn, and we are back again with our It coverage, which is unfolding over many episodes. If you didn't hear us last week, we were talking about part 2, the week before that, part 1, and the week before that, we did sort of a little primer, a little prologue to the whole thing and kind of broke down the history of it all. If you haven't listened to them yet, you should probably go back, unless you like listening to podcasts about the middle of a book when you haven't really been following the beginning of it. So, but that's the weird structure that we're doing on this, and I'm proud of it. Joining us yet again, we have Mackenzie.
Hey, Stax Gerber. Hi. Yeah, I'm really excited to be on this episode, and hopefully y'all know me. And if you don't, get to know me.
Well, if you don't know Mac, you can go back and listen to the first 2 episodes because he's on those. We have some newbies, though, on this episode to our It coverage. One of them is sitting right next to me, and what is his name?
Well, you know, people that would pick up a big podcast recording right in the middle should go to Juniper Hill. My name is Justin Juniper Hill Gerber. I feel like it's been a long time since I've been on the pod. I was not on the first couple eps for It, but I am grateful to be back, thanks to the aid of a Doberman clown that got me out of Juniper Hill. So thanks a lot, Doberman clown.
Well, this would make you Bowers rather than Juniper Hill.
I've been compared to Henry Bowers by a psychologist.
Uh-oh. And then who is sitting next to Mackenzie?
This would be Aisha. I wear pants now when I walk up staircases. Jackson, thanks to this book.
It's good to have Aisha back. Last time you were on was our thinner episode, I believe.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. We are happy to have you on our It coverage. We wanted to get as many losers as possible on these because big book, need a big crew of people to break this thing down because there's a lot. So before we hop into the episode, I'm very curious. Justo, this is your first time on the It cast. How did you first encounter Stephen King's It?
The year was 1991.
Ah.
It, the miniseries, had been out for a full year, but the next summer, ABC re-aired it. And so Mac, you were there. We were visiting my grandparents in Abbeville, South Carolina. And God bless our parents who didn't let us watch a lot of R-rated material, but because I guess this was a TV movie, sure, you can watch it on ABC in the guest room. And I mean, talk about like a moment like that stuck with me. I think as a kid around the ages of the young losers, incredibly effective. And the thing is, like, I knew who Tim Curry was. So I think for me, it speaks a lot to his performance too, because I was still terrified by him anyway. But go ahead, Mac.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, it was terrifying. I remember walking in and out of the room, and then also, even if you knew who Tim Curry was, he always played scary people up to, you know what I mean? Like, so it was frightening.
No, because I also knew him from like Clue and The Worst Witch and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
We're gonna
do a Worst Witch podcast, I think, in the future.
Witch cast.
Can we do a Clue and the Worst Witch?
I could talk about the Clue and Worst Witch all day.
Did you read the book right after that?
No, like I said, I watched the movie countless times. We would rent it when it finally came on video. I did not read the book until about 4 or 5 years later.
Okay, cool.
So it was 15, 16. So what I always love about reading these books after I'm so well-versed with the movies is it always feels like I'm, like, quote-unquote, watching a director's cut. Because there's so much more that obviously happens in this book than happens in the miniseries. But I think that's another reason why I think I've got much more of a fondness for the miniseries is because of when I saw it and the fact that I did read it before reading what it was based on.
Yeah.
But I've read the book itself, I think twice. I read it when I was, 15, 16, and I read it again in my early to mid 20s because I actually have the same copy I have from 20 years ago, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
So, love it.
Aisha, how about you?
So let's see. When this miniseries came out, I was like 5, so I was still a little too young to watch it. But I was 7 when I did actually see it, and what's funny is so when we were living in Hazel Crest, we had like 2 TVs in the house, one in the main living room and one in my parents' room. And I remember I didn't want to watch whatever they were doing, so I was upstairs in my parents' room by myself, and it was on, happened to be on like TBS or USA or something like that. And I was like, yes, I've been wanting to see it because the book that I've actually been reading for this is the first edition from Viking Press.
Okay.
So it's the black cover book, like my dad's edition. It even has his name like pasted on the inside.
Oh, nice.
Like,
Is there a date or anything on there?
No, he doesn't have a date for his name posted in, but he's already been asking me for this book back. I've had it for quite some time now. But I remember watching it by myself at 7 years old.
Jesus.
And like I fell asleep after it went off, and I like had a nightmare and I'm screaming, and my mom came in and found me. I didn't tell her I watched it because she would have been like banned me from everything.
Yeah.
But I got in so much trouble because I told her I was watching some other scary movie. But it stuck with me. And like you said, Justin, I have a fondness for this movie, for the miniseries, because I did not know half the stuff that was going on in here. And I tried to read it once when I was young because my dad always had it on his shelf and I couldn't get through it. So I just kind of put it away and just kept the miniseries as my only frame of reference. And then you guys when I started doing the podcast with you guys, I was like, well, let me try to read this. I was still kind of on the fence about it. I kind of put it away, and then you guys were like, let's do the podcast. I was like, well, I'm going to try to read this now. So that's kind of my first introduction, and like some spoilers, my dad kind of told me what happened, and I won't ruin that for anyone. And I was like, that is totally different from what I saw. Thank God they did not put that on.
Thank God you weren't 7 years old watching what we're talking about.
I'd be a totally different person, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my introduction.
Cool. Well, let's dive in. Today, we are talking about part 3, the Grownups. Is that what it's called? Grownups?
I think it's just straight up called Grownups.
Grownups.
Yeah.
The Grownups.
Well, we're going to go with the Grownups now.
The Grownups 2, starring Adam Sandler.
Christopher Rock.
So we're here to talk about that, and then also the third interlude about the crime gang, which is a very interesting section. I'm excited to talk about it. We're going to break that stuff down today. We're going to begin, as we've been beginning on these episodes, with a section we call Heroes and Villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
If you are interested in sort of the history, the hook, the structure and format of this book, that was something we kind of touched on in the earlier episodes. Now that we're settled in and we're just grinding straight away, we're going to talk about some characters. So let's begin at the beginning of this section with Chapter 10, The Reunion, which focuses on which character, Mac?
Bill Denbrough.
Bill takes a cab. And what do we learn about Bill in this chapter? Where is he at as an adult?
As an adult, well, I mean, at this point, he's starting to regress a little bit. His stutter is coming back full force ever since landing in good old Derry, Maine.
Derry, Maine. So in this chapter, he hops into a cab. He meets a very lovely man.
The cabbie.
I love him. He's very charming. Well, also a little bit scary. You disagree, Mac?
I don't know. I think cabbies are a little scary, right?
All cabbies?
Well, dairy cabbies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess what's really interesting in this chapter is the whole idea that Derry has continued to, I guess I will always think of Derry timelessly as sort of this small little town. But what I kind of love about that cab ride and what's so important about it is that the town has, kind of become a very commercial place. All the old places are torn down, lots of chains, lots of banks. Everything's sprouting up. They're going to a Chinese restaurant to meet everyone.
What I like about this also is from the outsider, things that look to be progressing in Derry.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously, as we know, evil permeates.
Still lurks. And so Bill is on his way. He finds out that Mike is gathering everyone at a Chinese restaurant to basically fill them in on what's been happening. So this is the first chapter where we get kind of the first glimpse. Everyone sees each other for the first time. And we kind of go through Bill's eyes. Bill comes in and he sees the whole gang there. And how does he react to it?
for a split second, he sees everybody as kids.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting because I always thought, what if I ran into, now it's kind of hard to do that now with Facebook and things. You want to see what someone looks like now, you jump on there.
Nostalgia's dead.
But running into someone that you haven't seen in 20, 30 years, it's got to be jarring.
It's kind of creepy. I mean, as someone who like went away for 10 years from Chicago and then had to come back and like met with friends and people that I haven't seen since I was a kid, even just seeing them every time, it's like you see the same parts of you kind of come out from that period of time, but at the same time, it's like, how do you juxtapose this childlike character that you created and that they created with who they are now? And like, it's hard to kind of put those two images together, which I kind of think is kind of cool when Bill talks and sees them and like interacts and like, I won't get into it now, but even when he talks about Richie and how he's like, after a while, he's like, I still see the same Richie there. He just has this facade of an older person trying to like figure his shit out too.
Yeah, I can agree. I mean, I have friends who, Mac knows some of my closest friends, and there'll be times where we'll go, 1 or 2 years without seeing them. But once we see each other, you pick right back up most of the time. It's pretty incredible how that works.
What is that feeling like for you guys? Have you had that happen to you recently where you haven't seen someone like in an astounding amount of time and running into them again? That to me is like, it's something that whenever I go back home to Detroit, like where I live, it's something I always kind of want to happen. The thing is, my parents moved right after I graduated high school, so my parents don't live anywhere near where I went to high school anymore. But then I still kind of live in certain areas though. But whenever I go back and I go to bars like in my parents' neighborhood, I always kind of hope that I'll run into somebody from a long time ago because I'm just curious to have that experience, because living far away from where I grew up, like I'm sure you guys get this too, I never see like anybody that I went to high school with or anything. And I wonder, I mean, I got Facebook, but it's like different. I kind of just want, I always kind of like want that experience of like seeing someone I haven't seen since I was a child.
So this is probably, I want to say like 10 years. And I saw Justin and I ran into this woman on the street outside of our job. And I could not make sense of who this person was. And they had sunglasses on, but they were just like, oh, is that the Gerber brothers? And I could not figure out who it was. And then I found out it was my best friend from back home. It was his mom.
Oh, wow.
And she was living here now. But she just looked so different. And I mean, of course, after it clicked, she had to say her name to us.
Yeah.
I just couldn't make out who it was. And that was jarring. And I think the difference between this and bumping into someone like that you really have fallen out of touch with and don't even know what they look like now, is that they're all kind of reverting to their younger selves. So they're able to connect on that level. But I know, like, when I see, like, my friend Adam, if I see him, I think that we would get along and we would, like, get back on some sense of who we were. But what's hard is, like, you feel really comfortable because you're like, oh, I can just be myself around you. But yourself is not who you were back then. So you're coming at them with this comfortability of almost being a total stranger again. But then obviously, you start to reconnect.
Yeah.
I think it's even tougher for Mac and I because our parents moved from our childhood home 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's very rare that we ever go back to Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
But in the instance, like a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact, for Loser Dan's bachelor party a couple of years ago, we went down to Orlando, and it very much felt like, in Back to the Future Part 2, when Marty goes back and Biff has got the big casino, and like, like all the green was gone. There was just all a bunch of like pop-up supermarkets and everything else. But I did not run into one person there.
Yeah.
Which is really weird.
Most people I know have moved away anyway, coming back. So like, that's the other thing that's been really different is that coming back home, there is nothing to reconnect with. But I also wanted to say too, like I feel like there's a difference too between like bumping into someone you haven't seen, because like it takes you off guard. There is that surprise factor. But for them, they like are consciously knowing that they're coming back. So there's almost that preparation.
Yeah.
And I wonder how that changes your, I guess, interaction, because you have this time to prepare and like figure out what you or overthink.
Because I think in this situation, I would get like butterflies.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't even matter if I like ended things poorly or just things we drifted apart over time, but I would kind of get nervous as opposed to just randomly running into an old friend. from like 15 years ago.
I've like run into people that I was like super close with when I was like in middle school, like this is years ago, but then you meet them as an adult and like they're kind of assholes sometimes.
Yeah,
and I
sometimes it
almost
happens.
wonder, I'm like, what if like Eddie showed up and everyone hated him? They're like, wow, Eddie became a giant dick.
Get out of here.
That's interesting. I wish that had happened. Like one of them came back and was kind of like complete
Yeah,
asshole.
what if they did? And but they were like the actual bullies, and like Eddie was actually kind of nice, but they were all the assholes at this point. And it was like, Eddie, shut up, get your aspirators, shut up,
Find out they're all the actual
get your
bullies.
placebo and shut up.
I always kind of thought of Richie as a weird kind of bully and like growing up anyway. So for me, even now, like when I reread this, so full disclosure, this is the first time I read this book, but this is the second time I read this chapter again in this summer. So I kind of was like, Richie's a dick. Like, I would not have been friends with him as a kid or as an adult.
I know Mike Rothman has taken on the mantle of being Richie Tozier, even though he's absolutely Eddie Kasperick.
That is so true.
I was blown away by that revelation. But as somebody who absolutely uses humor a lot of the time as a defense mechanism, I do think, especially when they reunite as adults, he's definitely trying to infuse some type of laughter into the horror that they're about to encounter. But like you said, even as kids and as adults, they would use the old beep beep Richie if you're going too far.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Nah, all right, you're not being fun. Now you're being
and
an
they
asshole."
use that
Yeah.
quite a bit. And
So wait, are
He
you
had a fine
Eddie?
line.
No, Lord, no. I don't know who I am.
Who are you? Are you Eddie?
I'm Ben.
Oh, I just listened to your episodes.
Eddie is technically Dan.
Dan Caffrey.
No, that's not right.
No, it doesn't match up.
I know.
Mike should be Eddie.
Apparently, let's
Richie,
interject for a
Justo.
second. Apparently, we had listeners do a vote. Maybe 3 people responded, I guess, and I don't know what happened.
No, I remember somebody assigned.
who is who
I remember somebody
Oh.
assigned all of us out, and I think at least that's what we're going on. But I'm almost 99% sure they said you were Richie.
Well, you know,
So
hey, you know,
There you
let's.
go.
Hey, I think it's time to do. I think there were some hanging chads. Like there were some hanging chads.
I think a
Florida 18
revote. I
years
think a
ago.
revote is definitely
But
necessary.
wait, who
to
do you
write
most? Who do you think most embodies you?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, God. That is because I was listening to you guys talk about that before when I was listening to the first few podcasts, and I was like, I don't know who I kind of like most associate with, because Bill, I was never like the leader as the kid. Like, I mean, I could have taken that position, but I just never wanted to. And then Eddie was, I could not be Eddie. That just has nothing to do with me. And like Beverly Bev was the only girl. So I was like, why do I have to be the only girl? And then Mike's the only black person. And I'm like, so do I have to be Bev and Mike combined? Is that my only lot in life? So,
Well, you can think on it.
you can
Yeah.
We can revisit this question
Yeah,
at the end of the
yeah.
episode and see if maybe our convo illumines that in any way.
I believe I was also alluded to as possibly being a Mike Hanlon type as well, though. I think
can
it's
see you
because
being
I was, kind of in charge of like assigning who's going to do what, this and that, and like kind of being the beacon in that respect.
I can see that.
I can see that. But I'm also outrageously funny and problematic. So I guess I would be Richie Tozier.
you're just everyone. You're every kid.
It's interesting too. I guess speaking of Mike, everyone kind of looks great. Like I mean, sort of. They kind of describe Bill as kind of looking like shit when they first introduced.
I mean,
He's
looking like shit
bald.
means like, he's lost some hair.
But he also
Yeah.
has a ponytail while he's bald.
Well,
Like,
no, I think the ponytail
well-
was only in the movie, right?
Oh.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
might be
then
right.
I'm
That might be
mixing.
right.
I'm mixing.
Welcome to the spot. I mean, I feel like I
As
do
somebody
that all
who's,
the time.
I watched the movie about a dozen times before I ever read the book. So I constantly I'm
Imagine
mixing up
Richie
facts.
Thomas.
Yeah.
But there's that moment when he sees everybody and he sees it's so visceral that they are the young versions of themselves that he actually reaches up to feel his hair because he thinks it's there.
Yeah.
And then
I do love
it's
that.
Not,
But for the most
yeah.
part, aside from like Eddie and Bill, they're all pretty hunky. They're all doing good.
Yeah.
Whereas,
But there's a
Mike,
reason
They
for
say
that.
I know, and
Yeah.
they say Mike looks like total shit because he stayed in town. And I guess that's one of the big revelations of this section, and very relevant to character, is that the one thing that really binds them all together is that in some ways, none of them, they grew in some ways, but they also didn't in so many other ways. Like we learn that none of them have children. And Richie has this whole story about, that he got his tubes tied or whatever, but then the process like didn't take. But even then,
the
like,
Irish.
Didn't matter.
yeah, it's
Some
like,
shit like that.
it's like basically no babies are coming out of these people, and they all went on to be extremely successful in their various careers. As we learn here, obviously Bill's famous writer. Richie is a big radio TV show or radio host. I keep in the miniseries he's a TV host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is this just is a successful stand-up comedian or a late night talk show host? Maybe. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks.
And then Eddie is like has this like amazingly successful limousine company. Bev has her fashion that she does, and then Ben is like the greatest architect in the world. Which I think you're going a little bit farther. Does he need to be the most like the biggest architect of all time?
He's a hunk. He's also a very smart young man.
Isn't he just one of? I'm protecting Ben because that's my character.
I think he's an up and coming. He's had a lot of really early hits. I think is what it really is.
Early hits.
It's derisive.
Okay.
Hit architecture.
I love my rising architecture stars.
Don't you have Architecture magazine? I get it every other week. It's a bi-weekly magazine.
Are they
some
on the front
freelance work
cover,
for-
like doing some sort of pose that's seductive? I don't know how that
They're just
works.
holding blueprints.
No,
over their nude bodies.
I literally write. I do freelance work for an architecture magazine, which is just kind of hilarious. And actually, my favorite interviews I get to do that are non-pop culture related are with architects. They're very interesting people, which is why Ben is very interesting as well. In his chapter, which follows up, Ben Hanscom gets skinny. We hear about how he got skinny, which is a story that I've always remembered. It's a story that I feel like even I forgot major sections of this book as I got older. I always remembered Ben's How I Got Skinny story.
It's funny. Even in the miniseries, that was something that really stuck out to me.
Yeah.
And they took that from
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I read this, I was really excited to get to it because I just love that whole tale, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the way it's presented.
I've got a question though, because you guys were talking about this last time about how you thought Ben was like an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. They portrayed him like that in the miniseries, so I always assumed that. And then when I read the book, I was like, he's nothing.
Yeah, I think even in the miniseries, I likened that to they were leaving like a holiday party.
Right.
And he was drunk,
Right.
And
Okay.
even because I don't think he ever really drinks in the miniseries. And it was the same thing here in the books. I think you kind of came to a resolution early on that he wasn't an alcoholic.
Well, yeah, I think.
I don't think he's an alcoholic.
Drink.
I don't think that. I think that he took the news so understandably, like so poorly that he just wanted to get drunk so he
Yeah.
could forget as much as possible,
Been there.
but be aware enough to get on that plane and go back.
Yeah,
That's what I think. I don't think he's an actual alcoholic.
Okay, just enough.
Well, they're all pounding him here at the Chinese restaurant.
I agree. I mean, I think Mike and I jokingly just kept going with that he was an alcoholic, but I do agree. I think that he got the news and he just went straight to the drink, and that's why even the bartender at the time was like, "You're gonna kill yourself," because like he doesn't, like.
Yeah.
I think
Don't
we're
drink like
all
that,
so dry, and no pun intended, on this podcast that sometimes it's hard to read if we're being sarcastic or genuine.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, this guy's a real jerk, alcoholic. It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on.
I guess like more so than any of the other characters, I get such like a melancholic vibe off Ben. Like it just seems like he's kind of sad. Like especially like, and I feel like the reason maybe I remember the story so well he tells about losing weight is because he sounds like he's having so much fun telling it because he's with all of these friends, and I almost feel like more than any other character, he's the one that's perhaps most energized by being with everyone again.
Well, I think about these are the best friends that they'll ever have.
Yeah.
And one they forgot. And so when Ben experiences his triumphant moment against his coach, during that story, he never shares that he actually shared that triumph with anybody else.
Yeah, because
he knocks out his coach.
himself.
That's it.
Yeah, he never mentions that he has any other friends or anything else going on. But
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
as a former fat kid, like that's a pretty like when you are able to discuss that with people and feel comfortable, like with any, I guess, traumatic experience in your life or whatever, especially as a kid, like being fat paddled. Is that what they were doing to him? And then like having your coach basically tit grab you, like. How humiliating is that? And then to be able to like be on your own and build yourself up, and then it speaks to his character and why he became so successful, because he was able to do that even though he was by himself. He still had that support somewhere deep down in the recesses of his brains of what happened with him and his friends in Derry. And I think that is kind of like why they're all successful, is that also in the end they were able to kind of build these successful businesses on their own. But it was never really by themselves. They always had each other, even if they weren't really aware of it.
Right.
There was always something there. We'll talk about the turtle later.
Oh, yeah.
Teaser. Turtle teaser.
Love that turtle.
So let's move on. In the next chapter, Richie gets beeped. What is going? Or maybe the losers get the scoop. Is
It's a different.
next.
Yeah.
Is it that one? Losers get the scoop. That's where Mike basically breaks down all the very, very dark things that are happening. And Mike, how would we sort of describe adult Mike?
You know, it's interesting with this. I forgot how Mike is Mike forgets like everybody else about Pennywise for the most part back in 57, 58 after the events happened. But it's 5 years later when his father is discussing what happened back at the black spot.
Yeah.
And so you have to think to yourself that he has now lived with the knowledge of Pennywise for 22 years.
Yeah.
I don't think it's so much a curse, like some type of a phantasmic curse, as it is just knowing what happened and never being able to shake it. And I think that if you did experience something like that as a child and you weren't able to leave town and you were able to grow up and get away, that would haunt you and it would hinder you in some way.
Especially because you know it's coming back.
Yeah,
because
you'll know. Because he knows, he goes in great detail in all those interludes about every 27 years,
he does
something's going to happen.
In this chapter, too, is when he kind of explains to them that the different time differences between all of these events, and basically says, like, every 27 years, this comes back, and he's been anticipating it, you know, but I think that he didn't want to fully believe it until, you know, a certain amount of murders happened, and he's breaking a bunch of them down, and man, they are horrific. That one about the we might all have this in the cemetery, but that one about the woman who like runs upstairs and
finds her little son.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll talk about that.
And the toilet's like flushing. It's like so fucked up. I love it. And then so Richie gets beeped. We learn a little bit more about Richie. Hey, he's still that same old trash mouth, isn't he?
Trash mouth Tozer.
And to the point of annoyance, I think, I find Richie to be almost colossally unfunny.
Let me liken him to somebody. I listened to the first episode. And I thought you, or I guess it was Mac, Mel, Mike, and Dan, made really good points about how just because he's a comedian doesn't mean he's necessarily funny.
Yeah,
and I couldn't stop thinking about Jimmy Fallon.
Yes,
but obviously, he's like the flip side to that coin of being unfunny. He's not offensive. Jimmy Fallon is far from offensive. But he's also very, to me, like unfunny.
Yeah.
And so that's how I picture Richie in that vein. Just because you've got all the success in the world doesn't mean that your audience, you know.
Well, he's like gregarious to the, like, he's like a TV host, you know?
Yeah.
Like, or, you know, like, that's the thing is a shock jock radio DJ.
That's perfect, yeah.
They're not funny in real life, probably.
No.
I mean, maybe they are, but like, they know how to like command the microphone. They know how to get people worked up. They know how to like, you know, move the conversation along and keep things engaging and interesting. And we see that in his character, but it's like, I find his bits to be.
Those are my misery.
I know, they're my misery.
I've got notes for every part,
yes.
and every part always leads off with Richie's imitations.
Yes.
They're so bad.
It's really hard.
But at the same time, though, there is something I think very likable about Richie because, you know, he sort of, his wall is so transparent that he puts up, and King never does such a good job of exposing sort of the tenderness of Richie, the sort of dependence that he has on these friends and how much he truly loves these friends. He always like is able to exude that with Richie still sort of having his jokey wall up.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I find him to be a very likable character, even if I find his humor to be very unpleasant. Like whenever he's just being a real person, I love Richie.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point because at one point, I think it's right in the beginning when they're first sitting down talking, and Eddie says something or starts coughing. I can't really remember what happens, and Richie goes right into like digging at him, and then he's like, I don't know what I did. I'm sorry. Like, I'm really sorry. I didn't really mean that. And you see the human side of Richie, which is why I give it to you. Yeah, he's an okay person in that sense. It's just his.
Well, it's just been reinforced.
By our time, I keep looking at my misery section like.
Well, I wonder, like, when King writes some of these characters, because I mean, like, are these all coming from his head, or is he like, who is he drawing on for this?
Yeah.
Like, is there a friend he has that's just like this?
You gotta think that that's the case, right? Because
I was wondering if it was maybe
kind of humor to this and the characters and it's so like precise. I feel like it has to have been someone he knew, right?
The complication is if this had come out a little later, I would have maybe thought this, but I know it came out, I guess, in 86, I think it was, 85, 86. But he started writing it years earlier. But you could also say that you could read a little bit of like a Howard Stern type personality in this too.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't see Howard Stern in this.
No,
either, you know?
I mean, it might have been Imus or something.
Don Imus. He shows up to Derry like a cowboy hat.
But I think it's interesting too. What you brought up, Aisha, about the like him needling Richie and then backing off. And earlier you mentioned that you thought Richie was kind of a bully, which I kind of agree with because he's sort of like that. You have that friend who always needles you, and when you're young, especially, you're so sensitive to that. But you also like still love that person. I've had so many friends like that who just like, and I was always the Eddie. I was like the one who got needled all the time, and it drove me crazy. And there is something kind of bullying about that. But I guess like the thing in the end is that it always comes down to like there's no ill intentions there. But I kind of love that when he's an adult, he backs off and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, what am I doing? Like you learn not to do that when you get older. You know what I mean? You learn that's rude.
Some people
Not
do.
to keep ascribing,
Some people do.
not to keep ascribing myself to the character, but I'll do that all the time. Like especially on text threads when it's harder to show people that you're joking around in a text.
Yes.
100% of the time. So there'll be so many times where I'll write something that just reads so abrasive and angry, and I have to immediately follow up with laughter or or a hug or like, I'm guilty of that. I'm sure Richie is probably an awful texter.
Yes. Let's move on. Richie gets beeped, and then we move on to the losers get dessert. Is that correct?
I believe you're right.
So in this, but kind of what we didn't get sort of a dedicated Eddie chapter here. We didn't get a dedicated Bev chapter here. But so what do we think about them at this point? Like what kind of characters are they exuding like in this meetup here? I think Bev, for example, is very, to me, she is maybe the most reserved out of all of them. Like she's like kind of putting on the air that her marriage is great and everything in her life is great, and
Does she really though? I almost feel like she doesn't either say yes or no to that fact. She kind of just is there. I feel the most that I got from her is that she's very like just nervous.
Yeah.
Like she's trying to cover it up, but it's coming off of her.
Yeah.
She's gasping. She's pale. She's nervous. She's like the only one when they do the dessert part that's like freaking out the most. Like almost the stereotypical feminine like hysterics. And I feel like I don't know if that's King trying to like show that she's trying to hold everything in and pretend like everything is okay, but it's really not coming off that way.
Well, she's also coming from the most trauma in the sense that the rest of them just kind of came, and they're all reeling from Stan's death, obviously, but she came from her husband trying to kill her.
Because they've all found success, but she has the added weight of the fucking monster Tom Rogan.
Yeah, and I think she's just gotten so good at lying to everyone about her that it's just secondhand. It's just second nature, I guess. And even you think that she would be honest with these people, but it's also like the first time you're seeing these guys again. And then Eddie too. Eddie doesn't really talk about his situation with his wife and all that stuff. You know what I mean? They kind of like keep that back.
He gets really like offended when they start talking about not having kids too. He's like, oh, not me. And like, what is that even supposed to mean? And I was always, so that caught my eye actually with Eddie was like why he was so upset when they started talking about not having kids.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I forgot about that. Yeah, his relationship with his wife is kind of a misery for me in this book, but I think like the nature of it is very interesting. The way it's written, I don't particularly enjoy it.
It's over the top.
It's a bit over the top.
But you mentioned one thing, and I don't know if we've gotten to yet, but they know about Stan's death in this scene.
Yeah, they
in the book.
In this
in this part of the book,
Mike tells Bill right up front.
Okay.
Yeah, so they all know about Stan.
That's different in other versions. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah. And they mention
at the beginning of the dinner, but then he's like, I'll talk about it more later or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that they all kind of discuss the whole idea that, Stan was maybe the most sensitive.
I think from a structure standpoint, because I'm almost done with part 4 in terms of our reading, I think King does a good job here, though, of kind of holding off Bev and Eddie having a lot to say during this section.
Yeah.
Because Eddie gets a lot in part 4. And obviously Bev has maybe the most effective moment or section of this particular part.
Oh, agreed. God, that chapter.
It's so good, but we'll get to that shortly. So I think just, I've read it a couple times. So when you reread things, at least for me, I just start picking up on the little things I definitely would not have picked up on, that first or second time reading it.
Yeah, definitely. And then losers get dessert. Not a lot of character here, but a whole lot of scary
stuff.
Fortune cookies doesn't translate as well on film, but I do enjoy. They really
tried to be honest, faithful with this, but that's another
episode.
Some of it works, but so basically Mike tells them, and this is almost, I think, I don't know, the book is almost structured to a point, like the structure is so evident, like King's sort of idea for the structure, that Mike almost sometimes feels like the author. Like he almost sometimes feels like it, because he's just like, why don't all of you go for a walk by yourself and let Derry speak to you? And it's kind of literally just like King, like maybe King going, how do I structure this next thing? And then Tabby like telling him that. And he's like, okay, I'll just have Mike say that.
I think at the same time, it was kind of like Mike saying, hey, assholes, I've had to live with these memories now for, 20 plus years.
Your turn.
You go out there, experience what I've had to experience every day for decades,
You know what's else is interesting here is that some of them genuinely think like they're going to get killed. Like they're just going to walk into Derry and they're going to die.
Well,
like,
he specifically says stay away from the Barrens, which I wonder if like had one of them been like, let me just go to the Barrens, fuck it. And
which I always thought was really weird because the Barrens is like where their clubhouse was, and I figured that's where they would want to meet. I thought that's where they would want to meet, not the Chinese restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, I thought that, I mean, maybe that's getting too far ahead. Maybe they're like, well, let's not go right to the source
Adults
of
are
the
more hungry than
problem
kids. You know, that's the sole point where he was asked, why didn't they ever go back to the clubhouse? Adults are hungry.
Loser hungry.
Yeah.
Loser hungry. And then do we want to keep talking about character chapter wise? Because do we want to kind of do a rundown of chapter 11 where we go through all the sections?
I think that's smart because I mean we'll obviously talk about each character.
We're going to go deeper into it,
Yeah.
but just to relive sort of what happens in each of these chapters because man, a lot happens here.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating stuff. And then we'll cap off heroes and villains by talking about the 3 uninvited strangers.
Yes. Good idea.
Some troublemakers there. Chapter 11, walking tours. We begin with Ben. And where does Ben go?
the library.
The library.
Where I would go.
Yeah. He's got quite the connection, and it's actually a very sweet scene that is offset by some really, really like extreme gory, gross stuff. Basically, Ben goes to the library. He kind of talks to the person, renews his library card, walks around, gets really nostalgic, looks at the connector between the children's library and the main library, which inspired his greatest feat as an architect to this point.
What's your problem with architects?
Nothing.
You're right. You're literally freelance sometimes for an architecture magazine.
They pay my bills. But and then we also, though, it's juxtaposed with Pennywise kind of just running amok. And the thing is, it's funny because when I was rewatching the miniseries, the scene I hate most in the miniseries is when Richie goes to the library and Pennywise is just like laughing and like the blood balloons and everything are popping.
Everywhere.
I just think it's so silly. Like, in the way Curry plays it, it's just so over the top, and I'm not a fan. And but then I know.
Yeah,
only because
we're not on the
it's so
same
over
page.
the top.
But I'll say that
He's a clown.
I thought that had been just made up for the film.
Acting if you can't like.
Yeah. Because I had forgotten about that.
I'll defend it like you, Aisha. I'll defend the scene, but I do actually think it's better here.
I agree.
Because the way it starts is so subtle and just out of nowhere where you almost have to reread. But we'll talk about that.
I had to go back,
section.
because the first time Pennywise speaks, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And so Pennywise basically takes on a couple different forms, including Dracula, very spooky, razor blade teeth, and 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 then he basically just kind of hassles Ben while kind of, the life is unfolding around him. And I like, what do we kind of take away from Ben in this scene?
Well, I mean, he's obviously waxing nostalgia for a lot of it. He's comparing the children's library and the adult library. And it's a very, I don't know, King, once again, underrated for this. I love the idea of him going and trying to get like a library card.
Yeah.
There's something really
That
sweet
would be something
about that.
I would do.
Yeah.
Going back home.
Because he could have done that. I don't know. There's just...
But if you think about it, it's like, it makes so much sense for Ben. Like, you watch the movie and you're like, why would Richie go to the library? Like, Richie doesn't really have that connection with it. Whereas Ben, though, like, Ben spent he spent many, many days, like, reading. And they also spent time as losers. We learn in the next part that they spent a lot of time in the library, like, learning how to make, the steel
balls.
or silver things. And so... it was a very special place for him. And, and I think you never really, like, I have the same connection with libraries. Like, I can still remember the various halls and stacks in the libraries that I used to frequent when I was a kid, because those were an escape for me. And I used to go and check out books.
Hiding in the corners and reading for hours.
Yes. I literally did that. That in bookstores, like used bookstores especially.
Oh, yeah.
I just have such a connection, and the smells when they come back are very distinct and you always remember them. And so I think that's what really kind of comes through in this chapter, is that affection that he has, that even as an adult who is extremely successful doing architecture or whatever, it's like there's nothing like, going to that place that made you feel safe as a kid.
And I still love libraries. I love libraries so much that I will I go 21st Century Library and check out books once again for my overdrive via the Amazon Kindle.
Oh boy.
I actually go to the library and check out books.
Forget it. Because that way, if I'm done with the book, it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, I'm returning it. I don't have to worry about any late fees. It's going to be it'll be taken away from me in 3 weeks. I don't have to worry about it.
Whereas loser Dan Caffrey,
Dan Caffrey still goes to the library to check out albums.
Yes.
Yeah.
And will
CDs.
upload them to his computer. Somehow he still has the last American laptop that has an actual CD drive in it. And what is he going to do when those are gone? Because the new computers do not have the CD drive.
Oh.
I guess they'll put them all on like. I guess you can transfer it.
He's gonna have to go to the old-fashioned iTunes or Spotify or something.
There's
He's
a
not
way.
gonna like that.
There's a way. I mean, they still have ways so you can do reel-to-reels and albums. Like
He will find a way. You're right.
Yeah. My
Dan
dad has
Caffrey
a
will
way.
find a way. Yeah, he will find a way.
I actually wanted to say though
yeah.
too about the library, because Ben is dealing with also being an adult versus being a child in the library.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know if people who still go to the library, like myself, when you go back and you're an adult and you're like, you can't, you know, I'm used to curling up in a corner and hiding somewhere and reading for hours, whereas an adult, that kind of looks a little strange if I'm like cross-legged in the floor in the back corner. They're like, hey ma'am, do you need something? But also just him trying to, like, he was in the kids area and he's listening to the kids story and he kind of wanted to go over and listen. There was that urge to do that, and yet he couldn't, and the woman came over and asked him if he needed help. Granted, that had to do with the child murders that were going on, but also like, what are you doing in this children's section? I still kind of like going and perusing kids' books and seeing like what they have available.
Me too.
Yeah.
I remember a couple, maybe it was probably last year. I went to Barnes and Noble downtown Chicago, one of the last remaining Barnes and Nobles, by the way. And I remember, I do remember perusing the children's section there, and still feeling a little bit like I think it was like a hoodie, you know. I was like I was like the Prowl or something. But I was genuinely looking for a gift for my goddaughter at that time, but you know, it's just. I don't know.
Well, you know, it's funny. On page 489 of I think it's the Scribner edition. They mentioned that the mall replaced the Kitchener Ironworks and that there's a Walden Books there.
I loved Walden Books.
I loved Walden Books.
I know, we went there. We used to go
lost
all
in.
the time.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Dalton?
B. Dalton.
B. Dalton.
B. Dalton bookseller, yeah.
Not as good as Walden, but also good.
Absolutely not.
No.
There's only one Walden
It
Books.
was like a cheap knockoff.
I used to go in there as a child and say, "You're no Walden Books," and leave, and then leave and walk to Walden Books.
And Mr. Dalton was not happy.
You're not
about that.
allowed here anymore.
He chased you out with a broom. We don't need you.
It was actually Timothy B. Dalton, one of our great James Bonds.
I might actually do that.
And then the next section of this, Eddie makes a catch. So Eddie's a baseball fan.
Hey, batter up.
Batter up. He goes to the Tracker Truck Depot, where the kids used to play ball, and some spooky stuff happens.
I don't know if you know this,
say
but some dead kids show up and wearing Yankee pinstripes.
Two different dead kids, I feel like.
A couple, I think there's a couple because one of Henry Bauer's old pals shows up, and I think a couple other victims pop up.
This
in
is
the
definitely
This
field.
didn't work for me. This is definitely
No, I think this is a bit
Wow,
of a
we're
misery.
actually on the same page here. I think.
Yeah, this is
Of all
we'll
the,
get
of
to it.
all the walking tours, this one wasn't as interesting.
And I feel like we just don't learn a ton about Eddie. Like we kind of just hear him talk about baseball a lot, and I guess it's a little bit of nostalgia for when he was young, but I just don't learn a lot about
I
him.
want to talk about that because I've got some notes here, but I feel like this is the only instance of the Losers where we don't learn anything about what's about to happen, or there's no real good memory that's triggered. For instance, with Ben, there's a memory about how they defeated it when they were kids. He remembers about creating the silver slugs out of silver dollars in
Right,
his section.
right. It drives
Whereas
it
Eddie is
forward.
more just like, who is it? It's
Belch.
Belch
Yeah.
is like popping over the fence to bully him, but there's no real revelation he's going to use from this to move forward.
Yeah, I
Maybe
feel like
that's
all he
why-
does. I feel like all he does is maybe just remember that Belch and Victor died. Like he
Yeah, that's
recalls that,
maybe
but I feel like
something.
we already knew that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing really to help them in the future. You know,
Wasn't one of the girls he had a crush on?
Yeah.
One of the people
Yeah.
who popped up, which I guess I didn't know she died. So I guess that
yeah.
was like
Well,
one of the
I just assumed like all of the kids died except for the 7.
yeah, the class was really empty.
He's like, wait a minute, you're not dead. I saw you last
Well,
week.
yeah, he tells this whole story about like various baseball players that like were the kings of the field, you know, along with like Belch was one of them,
Yeah.
but then the other kids were too. And he's just kind of reflecting on it. And it's kind of cool in that maybe it just builds out the world a little bit. But like I said, like, you know, it doesn't feel essential.
I think there were other buildups of non-major character kids, you know, that were much more successful than this one.
Did you have? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say part of me thinks that King was trying to, and maybe not in the best way possible, show how Eddie was still like so removed from being an actual kid because he doesn't have any memories of it really himself. He has to talk about other kids doing it because he
Right.
couldn't do it himself.
Yeah.
The most he really talked about of him doing it was like running in the field and catching those retrieving those lost balls,
Yeah.
which his mother would have lost his mind. That's like the only kind of like Eddie-ish memory you get from that. Other than that, I feel like it's just Eddie trying to relive what being a child's like being a child was like through someone else's memory.
That's a good point, actually. Because again, like his mother would have been was too smothering to allow him to ever do a physical activity like baseball.
Just revisiting the chapter, this isn't a huge revelation, but I guess the one thing that he does remember that he kind of takes away, well, like he's closest to the Barons out of all of them, like being in this field, like he can kind of see them in the distance. And he says, like, I spent the happiest times of my childhood down there in that mess, he thought and shivered. And then as he's walking away, he sees, he goes, he was about to turn away when something else caught his eye. A cement cylinder with a heavy steel cap on the top. Morlock holes, Ben used to call them. Laughing with his mouth, but not quite laughing with his eyes. If you went over to one, it would stand maybe waist high on you if you were a kid. And you would see the words Derry Department of Public Works stamped in raised metal in a semicircle. And you could hear a humming noise from deep inside, some sort of machinery, Morlock holes. That's where we went in August, in the end. We went into one of Ben's Morlock holes, into the sewers, but after a while they weren't sewers anymore. They were what? Patrick Hochstetter was down there. Before it took him, Beverly saw him doing something bad. It made her laugh, but she knew it was bad. Something to do with Henry Bowers, wasn't it? So, like, that's like the most he sort of has the memory.
It kind of teases something for us as a reader that we are going to learn about Patrick Hochstetter later on.
Yeah.
You know?
But I guess the memory of the Morlock holes and the sewers, because he is the one that leads the way in the sewers and finds his way through. So maybe that's like his contribution.
I guess we
love
always know. It's like we've already known that it is in the sewers, so it doesn't feel like a big.
But in terms of Eddie always being the navigator, like knowing how to traverse
I agree.
the sewers.
It just doesn't feel as.
I agree. It's not as
the other
big,
ones,
and you have to reach for that.
I do love. I don't know if you discussed this in the for the second part, but I love King. He keeps using Morlock holes throughout, and the Morlock holes are from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. Yeah. And so I think the imagery of that is really, really good if you are familiar with The Time Machine and the Morlocks.
Interesting.
Good stuff. Creepy stuff, I should say.
Yeah, they're creepy. Especially that what
I'm only talking about the Guy Pearce 2000.
Are you? Okay. Those are
no, I'm talking about the Rod Steiger, I think, versions.
Yeah, that's 60s. Really good. Yeah.
Part 3. Bev Rogan pays a call. Your hair is winter fire. January embers. My heart burns.
Well, thanks, Randall.
Where does it burn?
Oh, sorry.
It burns at Mrs. Kirsch's house.
Let me tell you something about this section.
Mrs. Kirsch, Mrs. Marsh.
This is the stuff.
I love it. I
can't wait to talk about this.
This was my favorite part.
We'll get there. Do we want to talk?
I want to say something about this part.
Yeah.
Another revelation takes place.
Yeah.
When she screams at it, the grackles know your name.
Yeah.
So once again, it's that deflection that they're able to kind of use in terms of backing up against your imagination and demoralizing the creature.
I love the idea of that, and that's been used in other things down the line.
You're not real, essentially.
The power of naming something too, I think, is interesting.
Yeah, this is such a good I guess like just what you said, like you're not real. Like we see that, that's such a trope now in like horror movies and everything, and it's gotten really lame. Just that whole idea of like you're not real, you can't hurt me, and everything. What I love about it is it still taps into that idea of I don't know, I guess the power of like claiming what is and isn't real and drawing upon your imagination and asserting that. But it does such a great way of getting that sort of message and that idea across while still keeping the threat real. Like people can say like, you're not real, then it like dissipates into air. Yeah. Like it's not like that. But at the same time, what it manifests as is not real. But the creature is actually real. But the forms it takes that tap into your darkest fears, those are what's not real. And so many other things, the monster's not real. No, the monster is real, but the way it exploits your fears is not real. And I think that's what's so cool.
I think because she realizes you can use this as a weapon, but it will not be a resolution.
Yeah.
She doesn't think to herself, okay, now we can just all go down to the Barrens together and just say, you're not real. The Grackles know your name. Goodbye. It's not going to be. It's not going to be that easy.
Grackles anyway. Yeah. Why do they know your name?
Grackles, by the way, are all over Austin.
They're very loud.
And they are horrifying.
They're very big. I saw them in Poland, and they are huge. Also, I kept saying the Grackles know your name in Poland because I was reading this.
Nice.
So
they're scarier than Pennywise sometimes, I think.
I find this chapter really revealing also just in that Bev still, even after everything her dad did to her, she still wants to go see him. Like, it's such a complicated, dark relationship.
Well, I want to talk, I wasn't on that first episode, but they do a really good I think they do a good psychological part on Bev because she is constantly finding reason to love her father.
Yeah.
No matter, even though he, punches her and slaps her and berates her. I think that if you grow up in that household and knowing people who have grown up in that type of a household, that does stick with you, and you're able to try to normalize that behavior. And I think that's what happens with Tom Rogan, is that she's able to kind of normalize it somehow, because he will occasionally say that I love you, and now he's doing this to her, and she's able to find some type of a reason with it. And I think you lose your sense of self-worth along the way too.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that she would go back to her father's house, even though she got out years ago, doesn't even know if he's around anymore, but would still be willing to go back to
But
to
even
see
then,
him.
as she was like going back the whole time, I don't want to say the logical part of her brain, but the part that got away was saying like, don't go, or like, why are you still here? Run. While she was ringing the doorbell, you have time to turn around. Like the whole time there was that conflict of like, I know this is stupid. Why am I doing it? Why am I being drawn here? But then she's also dealing with the fact that Mike is like, just follow your nose, like Toucan Sam type life. So
And she's probably been grappling with that literally her entire life, that conflict.
Right. And it's I mean, this to me feels like the cruelest of all the sort of in the walking tour, like of all the things that happen to people, just for it to happen in the house that Bev has like so many traumatic memories in, and to frame it as such a welcoming place at first, like Mrs. Kirsch being such a welcoming woman, and to like, she sort of, I mean, it almost feels like this is what Bev wanted in a way. She didn't want to see her dad, but she also wanted to know what happened to him. And this nice woman kind of brings her in and has like made her house look lovely again, like made it look beautiful, and then tells her about her dad and everything. And it's like everything's good until it's not, and it's just so cruel because she's lulled into this sense of comfort. And I think that that's, obviously a theme in her life.
And for the walkie tours, this is the first time we don't know right away that there's something wrong, because we see, with Rich or with Ben in the library, it's Pennywise, and obviously the baseball players, it's Pennywise in some form, But this is the first time it seems like a nice woman, and
it's disarming, and you don't quite see it coming. I think it's tough because they changed this in some of the adaptations, but I feel like in the book, a lot of the other kids, I mean, Eddie has an overbearing mother, but she loves him. And like,
I have some hot takes on that in the fourth part, though.
Well, but Ben's, yeah. Well, I'm saying right now, this moment.
Sure, we believe it.
But Ben's mother is actually really nice, right? Yeah, but like
Richie's parents are hilarious.
Yeah, so it's like Bev definitely has the worst, like home life. So for her coming back, it was always going to be hard for her, like on this walking tour, I think, because it was just like this whole town is just one big memory of all that stuff. Like the other guys might have like good instances or something, but like Bill and his family pre-Georgie dying, like he has those memories of his family there and stuff, but like Bev really doesn't have anything like that.
Yeah. Most of her good memories are with them, so for her to go on her own was already a recipe for disaster, I think, in my opinion. And even then, I feel like when she walks into the house with Mrs. Kirsch, the way King describes like the house little by little, like there's a part where he talks about the rose coloring of the paint and how it was like, what do you say? It was too low and pleasant to be gaudy. And like that sentence caught me a little bit because I was like, so it's not gaudy yet, but there's something off. So it was like it was almost like as I'm reading this chapter, little things were like slipping in, and you're realizing just before Bev realizes things are kind of off as it's going, and then you're like, oh, and the part where she's sipping shit. Basically,
It's so gross.
It's great.
We'll have a lot more on that later, I'm sure. Let's beep our way over to Richie. We get Richie. What is this? Richie Tozer makes tracks.
Well, this is a pretty iconic section because I remember a lot of people were upset it wasn't in the miniseries, and I remember early photos from even part 1 where you see the Paul Bunyan statue, and everybody was excited about that.
Yeah.
Well, the photos came out from part 2 that they're filming.
And people really lost their minds when they saw that,
Well, we had a lot of people saying, please take down that photo, but by that point it had pretty much permeated the internet.
Don't post it on a public forum, and we won't post it.
Well, I think I don't think the people producing the movie published it on a public forum.
Well, if the Musietis had reached out and said, please take this down, we would have taken it down.
We actually did get a comment from somebody who It wasn't. It was like an Instagram account that sounded like it was Andy Muschietti, but it was only had like 60 followers.
Yeah, so I'm sorry.
I just wonder if it was like maybe his own personal like that nobody knows about account.
Sorry,
but I didn't know if it was him. It wasn't. It was unclear. No. And so, but by that point though, it was literally
every
everywhere.
website had it.
So too late. Anyways, very excited about that scene.
Yeah.
And excited to talk. I actually have some good stuff on this. I actually really like this chapter for the most part. I find this is where, Pennywise gets maybe a little too wisecracky.
It gets a little silly near the end.
Yeah, which I'm not a fan of usually in King. But I do actually, I find the idea of, the whole Bunyan thing absolutely terrifying.
I like how this is also used. Again, King does a really good job in this whole section because now we're going to actually experience something that Richie experienced as a child before we come back to the present. And once again, that's different from the previous 3 walking tours.
Yeah, which is that's really interesting. And he kind of I feel like Richie's actually got a lot of unspoken trauma from his, even though he had a good home life. What he also reminisces on here is all the bullying that he had to deal with, because we don't see it as much. We don't see them come after him as much in the early parts. We see a little bit of it, but here he kind of recounts another story where Belch and Henry and Boogers Caliendo, great character,
great name.
Boogers in the last section also was like the one who was telling everybody how to have sex, which was very funny.
I mean, it helped me as a young man.
Yeah, and so
how to.
Yes, so I feel like this is sort of Richie allowing himself to remember some things that are pretty genuinely traumatic for him. The kind of stuff that he probably more than the rest of them was shutting out.
Well, something else. I think the joke about like why everybody's a quote unquote loser or an outcast was made, and I think that there was something was described to Richie as like, oh, he's just something because he wears glasses. I think it goes beyond that, though. Because I think, especially when you were a smart-ass kid back then, or any time in your life, when you were a smart-ass kid, I viewed him as kind of a nerd.
Yeah. You're smart ass, not popular like a jock or whatever.
And that's intimidating to jocks, Like that's an intimidating thing to be. So I think that's why he was such an outcast as part of the losers.
And I feel like I know we're not talking about the movies, but I feel like that's, as much as I love Finn Wolfhard in the new one, I almost feel like Richie, the real Richie, was probably more a lot like Seth Green in the original. He's so much dweebier, whereas like Finn, I could see that kid actually being kind of cool.
I feel like that kid would be like in a cool band called Calpurnia that would play at fucking Riot Fest.
Oh boy! All right, let's move on.
Well, wait, before we move on,
I was going to say, what else do we got on Richie?
When Richie sees that Iron Maiden and Judas Priest are playing on June 14th, and I said, ooh, what would Iron Maiden's set be in 1986?
Mac, do you have the set list?
I don't have the set list, but it would be playing Power Slave and Somewhere in Time, and let me tell you, those are 2 very good albums.
Yeah, it's exciting times.
Was that their only 2 at the time?
No, but that was like right around the time those albums were coming out, and I just wanted to reiterate that, along with the Al Pacino bit, that these are, again, two very, very well-known bands, and that we might be on the path of the turtle here.
That's exactly right.
Good to know. Any other thoughts on Richie? What else do we learn here?
Oh, nothing about Richie.
I like to think about Iron Maiden hanging out the Derry Town Square playing Aces High in 2 minutes to midnight. I'm excited already.
Hey, Aces High, it's on my phone right now.
It really is. Mac actually on his phone case is Aces High. Okay, anyway.
But I guess we also see here a little bit of Richie. This is where his humor can kind of help him, because the way he's able to respond in a way the rest of them aren't, where he can sort of crack jokes, even in the face of this kind of danger.
Unfortunately, maybe you're about to say something. The way he's able to use his humor to get rid of Pennywise is probably my misery section.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I agree wholeheartedly.
I had to reread that part a few times because I was like, I
wonder if what if they use this in the movie? Just a verbatim from the book.
Oh,
Bill Hader would be like, I really shouldn't have taken this role. So then,
but what does he remember here that helps him? That moves
his
forward?
absolute. He uses the voice of Jim, and is just totally like dismissive of him, and like get out of here, blah 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 blah, and another dialect, I'll say,
and that helps, and that's just kind of a remembrance of like the ritual of Chud, like the
to not be afraid,
the trying to make the other one laugh kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah. And the last bit in this, well, not the last bit, but the second to last, Bill Denbrough sees a ghost. Who is the ghost?
Silver.
Hi-yo, Silver, away.
Love Silver.
Secondhand Clothes, Secondhand Rose, great store. It's also an Insomnia. We begin with he actually visits the sewer where Georgie met his maker. in Pennywise. And there's another young boy there who also says he hears voices in the sewer.
And that boy rides a skateboard. Justin, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts
I've
on
got
that?
some thoughts on that.
Do you really?
We'll share it for later on.
Okay, cool.
I'll share it now. I was going to share it for my word processor of the gods. So, Bill at one point actually imagines, because the kid offers up his skateboard for a second to let him ride a skateboard, And, but just before imagining an accident, a conversation with the doctor, in which the doctor would say, "You were guilty of 2 major lapses, Mr. Denbrough. The first was mismanagement of a skateboard. The second was forgetting that you are now approaching 40 years of age." Bill tells the kid to be careful, to which the kid replies, "You can't be careful on the skateboard. I 100% agree. Everybody out there is skateboarding. You need to stop skateboarding in the streets of downtown Chicago. I've got my headphones in. I'm trying to get to work. Get off the skateboard. Find a nice, safe, clean, safe skate park and live the rest of your life."
What about people that make their living being pro skateboarders?
Look, if you're Tony Hawk or what the fuck's his name? I guess he's a ski
A snowboarder?
snowboarder.
the Shaun White.
Shaun White's, I think his career is just about over with at this
I
point
don't know.
for other reasons.
There's another Sean. Okay.
he got in trouble.
He got some trouble.
Yeah, okay, well,
Well,
let's just say
basically,
this.
this is a big joke. Justin does not like...
He doesn't speak for all of us.
I think
I'm a big skateboard fan.
I'm posting on Instagram right now a picture of you saying I hate skateboarders.
That's what we call
Snapchat.
That's what we call fake news. Big skateboard fan, never ridden one, but they look cool when they do it, man.
Ran into a car the first time I tried and never did it again.
Yeah, my friends loved it. I really tried. I had a board once, and I just couldn't do it.
I think this has for me to do with 99% jealousy because I'm so tall and lanky. I could never skateboard.
Yeah.
I could never skate. I just fall over.
Isn't Tony Hawk super tall?
I won't talk about it.
I was more into freestyle walking.
I want to say uncoordinated.
So, what does silver represent here? Do you guys think? To
I
Bill?
think silver has saved Bill several times.
Yeah?
I think it helped
so
him
many-
growing up.
Yeah.
Just you would race to beat the devil. In so many words. I mean, that's literally the words he would use.
Yeah, it's interesting to me the sort of emphasis they put on that bike. I mean, did you guys have bikes that you were very close with when you were young?
I did.
A means of
I had
transportation?
a bike for years, the same bike for years. It was kind of like this purplish tint too, I think, because I was a big fan of the Phoenix Suns, who still exist, believe it or not. And yeah, I remember I loved that bike so much. It was like I don't remember how many speeds it was, but very attached to that bike as a young man.
I had 2 bikes when I was young, and the first one, I basically just drove it into the ground. And I remember even after I got a newer, nicer bike, my buddy was kind of a Mr. Fix-It handyman kind of guy, and he was like deconstructing.
A young Mike Hanlon.
Yeah, he was like deconstructing a bunch of bikes to build like one mega bike, And so he needed some parts, and he asked if he could take my bike, and I was like, yeah, sure, like my old bike because I wasn't using it anymore. And then like when he took it, I got really sad. Like I got like really genuinely sad, and I got really melancholy because I knew he was gonna just deconstruct it and throw some of the parts out and everything. And I'm like, man, I spent so much time of my childhood on that bike, and I just like let this guy take it to go tear it apart. But what else am I going to do with it? Like,
That's
what else am I going to do? Like, at least it's getting refashioned in some other form.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool. But it was like, I just remember
It's evolving.
when I was like probably, 14 or 13 at the time. And I was just like, I was just so sad. Like, it was like this intense sense of melancholy when I realized my bike was gone.
I have 2. Let's see. The first one would be my big wheel when I was
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I thought I was a badass when I like rolled
Huge.
around the block on my little big wheel. And then I would like run over like the big kids. I would hang with the big kids and think I was cool. And I think I would do things like I carry a little baseball bat around with me.
Oh, like a young Belch Huggins over there.
I gotta defend myself. But when I had to step it up to a 2-wheel bike, I used to do this thing where I had because my mom would buy me these crappy little girl purses things, and so I would hook them up to the back of my bike so it would sound kind of like a motorcycle a little bit, or in my head. So when the tire would rub on it, it'd be like, I don't know, make a revving sound.
It's the equation. This is just like how they would put
Baseball
the cards on there.
Yeah, exactly. So I would go around the street with my friends, and we'd bike until it got the sun started to set just before it got really dark and the lights came on, and we'd bike around our neighborhood in the cul-de-sac, and we had our version of the Barrens because we lived next to a little prairie area, and so we'd be out in that area, and it just thinking back on that bike, damn, I used to do so much on it. I have no idea where it is now.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know where mine ended up going either.
Yeah, I don't know where my other one went.
I know where mine went, but I had multiple bikes probably, but the bike that I remember the most were these ones. Like my twin and I had these like matching bikes that were strange. They were black, but they had like splattered paint on them. It was like they were the most 80s bike slash
mine
early
was like
90s.
purplish with splattered like orange.
Yeah,
on it, I think.
that you could ever think of. And you know, I didn't like it at first, but you know, I had that thing for years and years, and I think we just ended up selling it at a garage sale. But I remember being pretty sad about that. Even though, you know, at that time we were driving everywhere, you know, and then I just didn't use it anymore. But I still remember feeling like something was being taken away here. And I was fine with it being sold, you know, but I don't know, you're losing that part of your childhood.
I can only speak for us, Mac. I mean, but we used to ride our bikes all over the place. I mean, as a kid, that's your transportation. Even if it was just down the block, you would ride your bike to your friend's house. If it was, I don't know what's going on these days, but I mean, we had free reign on those bikes. We would be out all day.
As long as you came back before it got too dark.
Yes. Yep.
That was all.
Same.
That's crazy.
Another motif of this chapter is Bill repeating he thrusts his fists against the post and still insists he sees the ghost. Why do we think that keeps haunting him in this chapter?
That was something that he was never able to pull off.
Right.
To lose his stuttering as a child. I think he would always try to impress, especially I think his mother, by trying to do that, and he could never pull off.
And we also find out that is something that he uses against Pennywise in the future.
Yeah. He only said it once.
Yeah. So and it's slowly like coming back to the surface.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting the fact that his stutter is coming back here. We see sort of the intense anxiety he feels about it coming back. And when he's in the store, I was like, my heart was bleeding for him when he was oh wait, did I lose it? He's basically talking to the store owner and he's like, he says, the proprietor's eyes now showed Bill something which, even in his present confused state, he remembered and hated from his childhood. The anxiety of a man or woman who must listen to a stutterer. The urge to jump in quickly and finish the thought, thus shutting the poor bastard up. But I don't stutter. I beat it. I don't fucking stutter. And I think that's so interesting. Sort of what we're seeing here is not just the trauma of, I mean, I think we've seen this with a lot of the people. What's coming back and haunting them is not just Pennywise, but also like whatever it was about this town and their time in this town that was so disturbing and really left a mark on them, you know?
Whether or not they had ever encountered Pennywise.
Yeah. Which is very interesting. And so, any other thoughts on Bill?
Well, the same proprietor also tells Bill, just make sure you stay off that fucking skateboard. No, it does not.
I was like, wait, did he take the skateboard?
That's another example of us being way too dry.
What if Bill was looking at Silver and he's like, how much? And the guy tells him, and then he sees a skateboard right next to it. And he goes,
like, does a wheel, pops it.
I'll be taking that.
Skateboard.
2, please.
Silver 2.0.
Yeah.
Rad silver in italics or something like that.
So, final chapter, Mike Hanlon makes a connection. This is the last chapter of this section. What do we got with Mike? Mike lives in a nice little house. He used to walk by it all the time when he was a kid. Now he lives there, and he bought a kit to fix a bike long before he even thought that, he
somehow knew.
Had the urge, yeah.
Bought the baseball card. Or wait, was it?
Oh,
playing cards.
the playing cards and all that. So... anything else to take away from this chapter? It's a very short chapter.
I think it's the big thing. I think this whole section is mostly about the people coming back to town because Mike has been living with us forever. We don't need to have Mike going on a walking tour and dealing with everything else, you know?
Yeah, it's also really short. It's only like a few pages.
Yeah, it's basically just sort of tying off the loop, you know?
Exactly.
It's Bill and Mike coming back together, and they're all going to go hang out at the library later and pound some brews, some cold brews.
Cool.
Yeah. So... we're going to wrap up Heroes and Villains here with 3 more characters. We've seen them all.
We didn't invite them.
But they're here. 1, 2, 3 uninvited guests. Who are they?
Some good friends of ours.
Who's the first?
I believe the first
Henry
Bowers.
Henry Bowers. I think that's the thing I quote the most from that miniseries.
Henry Bowers.
So we learn a lot in this section because Henry is a very key component of all of this. What would you say are some of the key takeaways here? I guess for me, I still was shocked, even though I remembered this, but then I didn't. Like, it came back to me, but I had forgotten that all the murders had been pinned on him.
Yeah, and some were just by coincidence, and he was kind of compelled to admit to a lot of them.
Yeah.
The problem, I think, was probably because he killed his father.
Yeah.
Didn't look good.
And then he actually did do
I
that.
actually liked
Yeah.
that one.
And I love that section.
Yes.
Like when he actually does it. But we find all that out here. So he's in Juniper Hill, very famous place. He's surrounded by a lot of perverts and weirdos and a lot of very mean guards.
Yeah.
I got to say, one of those perverts and weirdos is named Kuntz.
Kuntz.
I had to think. Was that a nod? Was that a?
It's gotta be.
dig?
I think it's
What
I think it's a dig.
He knows what
He's
doing.
in Juniper Hills.
Yeah, he's also an asshole too. So,
I wonder if Dean Kuntz is afraid of Doberman pinchers or whatever. Is that the dog that he's afraid
I
of?
think so.
Yeah. I wonder if in real life he's afraid of them and this was King having a little fun.
Maybe. I just, I'm looking forward to that Kuntz cast.
Kuntz cast, it is happening. 2019.
Look out for that, yeah.
2019.
keep it up for April 1st, 2019.
So it begins with Henry hearing voices, and he is being spoken to by the moon, which is very spooky.
I really
thing.
thought that was creepy. Yeah.
And then he's got a visitor underneath his bed who, different from the miniseries, it's not Belch, but Victor Chris, who had his head ripped off, we find out.
I think the idea of anything popping up from any bed in any horror story is usually effective, and this is no exception.
I was always one of those kids who never wanted to look under my bed, or if I got off of my bed, I would jump far enough so that I would never have to be close enough for something to suck me under.
I very rarely, I don't know why, I very rarely will, especially at night, will just leave my feet dangling over my bed.
Me neither.
like
It's
it.
creepy. I think if I'm usually don't even think about it, I'm fine. But as soon as I start to think about if there's something under my bed, 9 times out of 10, I have to check. I have to check. I just turn my flashlight on, look under. I'm like, no, okay, that's fine.
But yeah,
Hard pass.
I love. I guess I've always been struck by this Henry section, and I love the character so much because, man, this is such a stark contrast to where we last met him. The rest of the characters, they all kind of they're adult versions of the characters that we knew when they were kids. And I guess what I love about Henry is that we go from this kid who kind of ruled the roost around Derry, this little bully, to being this old, battered, cowering guy in a mental institution.
Do you think the book would have ultimately been just plain awful if they made it where Henry was a rival architect to a rival architect to Ben? He was getting the magazine covers.
How did he get away with murder though? That's also
the big revelation would be I did kill half those kids.
Oh my God. No, that would be so funny.
Oh God. Lame.
I love that stark contrast there. I love the idea that Henry has sort of lost all of his power back then, and he was sort of abandoned by Pennywise in that sense.
Totally used by him.
Yeah, and that's why I love the Patsy archetype is always my favorite of all archetypes, and I love Henry because he's one of the best Patsies ever written, in my opinion. I love that character. Just somebody who's used for means that they don't fully understand, and their lives are ruined because of it. But he's so quick to sort of feel useful again when Pennywise starts speaking to him.
Do you think with Henry that he was going slowly crazy because of some Pennywise influence, or do you think that he was always destined to go somewhat crazy?
Destined to be somewhat crazy. He would always go to the point of, I'm going to kill you. That was his immediate response to them whenever they did something that pissed him off.
Well,
and as the book goes on, they keep saying it really seemed like he meant it this time.
Yeah.
Or there was really something becoming unhinged about him.
But I think it's deliberately ambiguous.
Yeah.
And that's sort of which I know, and that's the point of your question exactly.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I just didn't know if anybody had thought there was a little bit more of a definitive answer because I don't know.
I think it gets to one of the book's themes. I mean, and this is just kind of the way King loves to play around with the darker side of small towns. I mean, this is something we've seen back in Salem's Lot and other books. It's this whole idea of he takes sort of a certain archetype that we do encounter as children, and he can make it genuinely malevolent kind of by using the idea that the town itself is cursed, And so the evil that's within kids, it gets amplified to such an insane degree. And I think we're meant to wonder, with him and Hochstetter, because Hochstetter, so we find out in the next part, we'll be talking about that next week, he's cruel beyond belief, that kid.
That's a whole other psychosis.
And it sort of makes you wonder, with these kids, is that sort of rotten quality to them? Has it been exacerbated by Pennywise and by the evil in the town? Because they, like, the thing is, so many core components of those kids are recognizable, you know, as bullies. And we talked a lot last week about the idea of bullying and why Henry resonates and Victor and Belch, all of them resonate, you know, in that larger context of school bullies, and the way that King often takes bullies and sort of gives them a genuine malevolence, like a violence.
I think to Aisha's point, if you do go with the angle that he was always destined to be crazy, it would make sense because he grew up with Butch Bowers.
Yeah, definitely.
Who
made
went
him
through
kill
things.
the Hanlon's dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
who went through things and was constantly inflicting racist thoughts upon him, violence towards everybody else, mistrust, and was also abusing Henry his entire life, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So, like I said, maybe he was always destined to be crazy, or maybe Pennywise just pushed him to that next level, you know?
Like go ahead.
No, I think he definitely is just crazy from the get-go. But definitely, obviously, Pennywise knows that, and he's able to totally use him.
That's why
for
he's his tool, yeah.
Especially now, especially when in this chapter when he comes to him, and he knows that he can't get to them necessarily, but if Henry gets to them, then they're done. You know,
Yeah.
like in the real world, he can hurt them. You know, if they don't believe in him, it's harder for him to make any kind of dent unless they actually come attack him, and he doesn't want them to get that close.
Yeah,
You know,
agreed.
Yeah.
so he definitely has an influence over him. But I think that Henry's batshit crazy from the get-go.
Definitely. Well, and it's interesting too, the idea of it being passed down generationally, like his dad is so responsible for it. And I think that speaks to like the grander, like if we want to jump ahead just slightly to the interlude, we kind of see the way that all of their parents and grandparents, you know, gunned down the Bradley gang in the middle of town, you know, and that whole section to me is very indicative of, you know, something really rotten at the core of the town. And one of the most telling moments of it is that they say that Bill Denborough's dad, Zach, was a child at the time and was present for it. Like he was around. And that to me was very interesting because it just ties to the generational line of this all. And the whole idea that we are watching, you know, that evil is being passed through generationally. And the idea that, you know, people are being corrupted is something that Pennywise probably wants, and then he uses that and he exploits
Easily
that.
corrupted.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, that's the thing.
It's just going to happen. It
it's
feels
not
like, you know?
hard to
No.
like tip them there.
That actually is a good point. And or it brings me to something that I can't remember where I read it earlier, but them constantly talking about how Derry had almost like it has become so ingrained in what Derry is that they kind of need each other to survive. It's I think it was maybe when they were talking about in the beginning with Adrian Mellon's character, when that is going on, how this like darkness has just been building and feeding and living off of Derry for so long, and the people are a part of it, and they like don't realize that it's controlling them. And there's a point where like if we go back to the beginning of the Grownups section, where I think it's like page 479, and Bill, I saved it. He's in the cab with the Dave the cabbie, and he says, "Just a feeling that Derry was cold, that Derry was hard, that Derry didn't give a shit if any of them lived or died, and certainly not if they triumphed over Pennywise the clown. Derry folk had lived with Pennywise in all his guises for a long time, and maybe in some mad way they had even come to understand him, to like him, to need him, love him, maybe." Yes, maybe that too.
I had the same
And
quote.
That
for
stuck
Derry,
with me.
That's really
That's
good.
the first thing that's leading
Yeah.
to cemetery, because I agree with you. It's so
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to the fact that like it, even if Butch and Henry had the predisposition to be crazy, it, you know, there could be anything, like it's nature versus nurture. It could have been that Henry could have been okay. He might have been, if Pennywise had not been there, and if Derry wasn't like this dark, seething abyss of just evil, he might have been, a bully, but he might have not killed his father. He might have not been so psychotic. So,
well, it's interesting to consider, you know, one of King's favorite themes is the idea of the darkness that lies beneath, you know, otherwise placid areas. And that to me, I feel like that's why Pennywise is he's such like sort of the master thesis on that whole King theme, that whole motif, because that whole idea that we become almost dependent on sort of the darkness. And like I've been to so many communities, or I've lived in communities where it almost seems like it's like there's almost this sort of sense of comfort within the darkness and the darker aspects, you know? Like, and by that, of course, I don't mean, you know, murder and things like that. I'm just saying from the communities that I grew up in, it's like, you know, just sort of a capacity to two-face kind of qualities and shit talking and kind of, you know, just a general sense that nobody trusts each other. And I guess that's like what I've always related to. Like, you know, when people talk about the closeness of small communities, I've never related to that because I grew up in sort of a suburb where I felt
Mac
like,
and I did.
yeah, I mean, I grew up in kind of a suburb in outside of Detroit, and I never felt, and I just, all I felt like were all my friends' parents were always just talking shit about each other whenever I went there. There was always this sense that nobody liked each other. My parents, I love them to death, but they talked a lot of shit. You know, I felt like that they didn't fully trust the community. You know, there wasn't a closeness
Sounds
there.
like your mom was like a Henrietta Bowers.
Well, it was like I've been watching this. There's a great drag queen named Alyssa Edwards, and she has a new Netflix show
like
called
her.
Dancing Queen,
Yes.
and it's awesome. And
I
it's all
haven't
about
watched it.
it's all about her dance school in Texas. And well, I always think of her as Alyssa, but it's Justin is the guy who runs the school. And
Justin Gerber.
but
Thank you for supporting my show.
But one thing that's interesting there is you see all the dance moms, and one of the things that the dance moms were doing that I was like, you know, blanching at, clutching my pearls at, was like these old, like 40-something women are like trashing these 10-year-old girls because they're getting opportunities that their kids aren't getting. And they're just like, you're going to say that like my daughter's not as good as Atlee, you know? And it's just like, and Jen and I are like, what drives you to be like that? Like to trash a 10-year-old girl, you know?
Jealousy.
I know, and
It's
exactly.
so disgusting,
But-
but we all are like a
Yeah.
part of it. Because I feel like I've caught myself sometimes, like,
Hell yeah.
like when I'm in my dance class and I'm like, I have to stop myself. I'm like, what are you doing? These are your friends. Like,
Yeah.
you should congratulate them because they're doing really great. Like, what's wrong with you? But we all have that like little demon in our head. It's
That
like
competitive nature in all of
Yeah.
us, definitely.
Yeah, and I guess like that's what I'm getting at is there is that light sort of darkness that we understand, and King always takes it up and brings it into the true horror level, you know?
Put
Aisha,
a little dancing Pennywise on your shoulder.
Yeah, right. Aisha, did you live? Because I know you live kind of close to a prairie, but would you say you lived in the suburbs, or where
So when I was young, my parents moved out to Hazel Crest. So it's like a south suburb. If you are ever in south suburbs of Chicago, you know, like Chicago Heights area or home, like I'm out there, that's where they used to live. So there was a prairie area there, but like we had a pretty close knit like group in our cul-de-sac. Like not all the families hung out, but like a few of us did, and like all the kids would stay at someone's house while the parents went out. So like they were close. I don't know, hopefully my parents never hear this. Sometimes there was shit talk, but I feel like there was never a point. So when you guys were talking about closeness to the community, they may have not trusted the community itself in the sense of like the whole space of our neighborhood, but there were families that they connected with, but they did talk. Everyone talked shit about each other because I mean, like that was the way it was, but they would always be there to help you if you needed it.
And that's good, yeah.
But then when we moved to another neighborhood, in a little bit richer neighborhood, and I want to say richer, but like just
affluent?
Not even more, slightly more affluent,
Okay.
because my parents wanted us to go to a better high school. The people there were less welcoming.
Yeah.
Like there was more of I'm helping you or I'm being nice to you because there's an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
So it was almost like we lost that sense of like closeness or connection or being able to trust each other, because I feel like all friends talk shit about each other at one point in our lives.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think that in and of itself is not so much the negative. It's if you talk shit and you truly are like wishing ill content for that person or family or whatever, and not there to help them when they truly need it. And like I grew up in the beginning having people in a small town or a small section of our neighborhood. We weren't a small city or small town, but we were a small section of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So maybe I had that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
Well, the smaller the community, I mean, that tends to help a little bit. I feel like that's like suburbs are just so impersonal, you know? And I mean, you know, every house looks the same, et cetera. And it's like, I just, I despise suburbia with like every bone in my body because I hated growing up in suburbia. And
See, I loved it though.
really?
But I think there was still a sense of neighborhood and community in our suburbs,
because
though.
each subdivision I felt was its own little town,
Yeah,
little community, little
definitely.
town. Like our street, we had such close knit friends, and
And our parents had friends down the street and things like that.
And then, you
it seemed real as the thing. It didn't seem like it was some like Celebration, Florida, which is basically a fake Disney neighborhood, It wasn't like that.
But
it wasn't like that.
Yeah. Also, though, for us, when we first moved to that area, everything was brand new. It was just being built.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the only communities in the area in which we were living. I mean, there were other little suburbs like just around there, but
like I said, now it's like Back to the Future too.
Well, yeah, but it was a tight knit like close community. But then now you go back there and it's just everything's developed.
Yeah.
There's no forest. It's like every single block of land is something.
So it's kind of like Derry, modern day.
It does feel like modern Derry. Yeah.
Oh, we lived in Derry, Florida.
The truth comes out.
So Henry Bowers.
Okay, so I know we could save something for misery, but I do think that, to quote Billy Crystal, you went too far.
Yeah.
I think there's one effective thing in this scene, but I'm going to save it for the cemetery. But I didn't like it in the miniseries, and when I got to the book, and I went, they were being faithful to the book, but
cute.
the book, it's not.
Yeah,
Well,
I
it's
was
not-
just like a dog in a clown suit, just as adorable.
It doesn't work in the miniseries because they never set up that the guard was afraid of that dog.
No.
So like in the miniseries, just like, wait, what the fuck?
Doberman and a
Could they just have had like a cool moment, like a lock unlatches, and that's
Right.
it? And then something distracts somebody
All
else.
you need
like,
to see was like dead Belch grab him and slit his throat or something. You know what I mean?
Dead
Like
that would
Victor.
have been good.
like Victor in the book. Yeah.
I would say honestly, I think just keep these people who are not even in Derry out of it, though. I don't think I don't like how he's able to affect somebody who doesn't even live in Derry. For
Well,
instance.
that's why
for me, I'm like, just have him get out of there.
Yeah,
Somehow.
I agree, but that's why I felt like it was more important in this scene for Henry to do the breaking out, because he's like empowered now by Pennywise.
Or Henry could just kill the guard.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
That Henry takes the
That
leap
should've
that
been-
he had been scared to take because now he feels like he has like this power of Pennywise protection
Agreed.
or whatever.
I just imagine like him and the Doberman clown skipping out of the section.
Exactly. Like,
holding hands.
like the aftermath does not work. Like I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
What if that Doberman clown just stay with him the rest of the book? Like everywhere he showed up.
So who's
right.
scarier, Henry Bowers or Tom Rogan?
Oh, it's
Tom
very
Rogan.
scary. That's tough, but I kind of have to agree with you, especially what he does to Kate.
Was
So
the
we
friend?
meet
Yeah.
Kay McCall, who is
Yeah.
not me. We've seen her before, but Bev's friend, basically the woman who helped her kind of get her bearings after she left Tom. Tom shows up and is very unkind.
Never
This is
answered the
interesting
door.
to me because you feel like Tom is going to be this. You hear these nightmare domestic abuse stories, but usually it's so well hidden away from the public eye. Like you just hear about the abuse towards the spouse or something like that. So the fact that he's actually doing this to a friend that you figure he would be, lying to, shows just how truly psychotic he is at this point.
I
too.
wonder though if like she had guy friends that she went to, what
Yeah.
would he have done? Like would he just shown up with like a gun and like started shooting them? Because
Yeah.
I mean that seems what he wants to do when he gets to Derry.
Yeah.
But like
I think he just feels he's got such an empowerment over women that he can just beat them into submission, and he's got all the power. And he doesn't have to go to the lengths of killing, which he would probably have to do, like you said, with
Well,
men.
you had just mentioned the whole idea of Pennywise affecting people outside of Derry. Do you think he has his claws in Tom?
I don't
or
think
is
so.
Tom's
Not
just
yet.
doing
I think
this on
this is
his
just
own?
Tom is an abusive monster.
Man, King can I feel like he gets so the way he writes bullies to me, like he's very into that archetype and he makes them more, he kind of takes the innate quality of what makes them awful and then he brings it up to genuine evil. And with sort of abusive husbands, man, when he writes
it to
one,
11.
he goes far. Like, have you read Rose Matter, Aisha?
no.
Yeah, Rose Matter is like that. I mean,
should I not read that?
no, I mean,
I was like-
it's a pretty good book. I'm actually excited to get to it on the pod. Well, I read it when I was way too young, but that whole book is about spousal abuse, and it's about like elevating sort of the abuser to the level of genuine monster, like actual monster, and so it's terrifying. And but the way he writes Tom reminds me a lot, where this guy is like a wrecking ball, and he is completely unfeeling. And I guess my problem, and I feel like we might have talked about this. I think we talked about it last week a little bit, just about Tom. Is that there's almost something like you don't see what love, like what
I
is
talked
his
about
love
this.
for Bev,
How did he get her?
Yeah, how did he get her? What is the
I
nature
think
of that relationship?
I was on that first episode. I think this is a situation where he was like an attractive young guy, successful, and showed Bev, who lived her entire life under the psychological fuck-ups of her father, and just was drawn to him. And so when he started becoming very domineering, her, not instinct, but what she was just psychologically programmed. Programmed is the best word for Aisha.
Well,
I think that is why she was so easily drawn to him. I feel like if she had lived a pleasant childhood, I think she might have been like, fuck this guy, I'm out of here. But I just think that the way that she was raised and that fucks with somebody's head when you're a kid.
And I do get that. I felt like in the book, even up until this point, and I said this in the first episode, there are moments where she keys in with her father that she's like, and like, I did love my father, I did love him. So I feel like there's a moment or a couple of moments where she actually says she knows that her father actually does love her, and so it's like really confusing, that relationship. And that's pointed out.
I think that's a grooming thing too. Like, I love you, Bevy, and he's just like, oh, I love you too, Dad.
Yeah,
because it's sugar with a bit of bitterness to it. Like,
right.
I guess what I'm getting at
but my thing with Tom was that I felt like they never showed
because we
good.
never got Bev's perspective on Tom.
Yeah.
If we had spent as much time with Bev thinking about Tom as we get with Bev thinking about her father,
right?
I'm sure we would have a similar thing.
We actually touched on similar ideas last episode, and we were I believe it was Mel who was talking about that the father is so much more defined than Tom because we get to see Bev's
perspective.
Right. And that's a good point, because I guess it's like I go a little crazy in these Tom chapters because he is so unspeakably evil. Like, even Henry is given dimension. Like, I almost feel like the problem with Tom, and he's a good villain in the sense that you fucking hate this guy. Yeah. But like, I want to see, like, is there a part of him? Like, how does he care? Does he care for Bev? Or like, is there any semblance of love inside of there that manifests as violence? Or is this guy just a pure controlling monster?
I don't think there was ever a point of like, just thinking of the character that's been portrayed so far, I don't think there was ever a point of love for her.
Yeah.
I don't think so. And that's the thing. Okay, so one of my friends, she works with like a rape advocacy thing and like domestic abuse. It's like, it's not so much sometimes that they love you ever. Like it's more of like, they just need something to control. It's not. So I'm curious, because of the fact that King doesn't go into like how they met or like what exactly like drew her, or like how did he, because most of the time you see them, they're the sweetest people ever in the beginning. They draw you in, they're charismatic. There's no type of negative. You might have like little signs here and there, but it's never anything like full on violent or aggressive or physical. And that's why I'm like, before they got married, was there anything that popped up? Was it that like, there's so many questions I
do think in the first part, there's an early date that's discussed where he slaps her in the face in the car, right?
Yeah.
Because she's just about to smoke or something like that.
That was the first instance.
And then,
but I feel like at that point, he had groomed her into like being loving at that point, and there probably no incidents. And then to pop like that.
Because then that would preclude her to be like, okay, it's a one-time thing. He was just upset, and it was and like, that's when you get into that psychological sphere of like, it was my fault. I like triggered this in him, and then that would make more sense to me.
And
that's how I read it.
Because, like, I mean, I'm like, we grew up, and like, I like, my twin had a rough childhood, and I felt like there was so much tumultuousness growing up that I confused like loving my brother with like that uncomfortability. So whenever I'd feel nervous, uncomfortable in a relationship, I thought that felt like normal or comfortable to me. So I would be
like
more inclined to stay in a bad relationship.
Defending too much and not looking at
I would be more
were.
inclined to be in a relationship like that was uncomfortable, because it felt like, well, that just means I really care about this person, but sometimes that's not what that means usually. So, I can see. I mean, I could definitely see how that goes. But I think I agree with you. I think that Tom, it's all about control, and I think that he loves control, and that because he has that control with her, I think that he loves that, but not really loves Bev. And I think that he's chasing that.
And I do think though that he has much like Henry at a certain point when he was younger. I think at this point, Tom has officially snapped into that next level of psychosis where,
Yeah.
again, there is no exterior to block him from the rest of the world. He is now just out there beating up random people.
Yeah.
You know?
He also definitely sexualizes her in a specific way.
Yeah.
Like, because I think it's when he's actually on his way to come find her, where he talks about how no other woman would like fit the specific standard. He would go home with all these models that wanted him, like, which also plays to his ego, which I feel like that was why he wanted her as well. She's a powerful, successful woman in of herself, and he's able to control this powerful, successful woman and subjugate her to his will. But then also he was like idolizing her hair and her breast and like her body compared to other people. And then you get into that whole Audra thing versus Bev. I won't get into that now. But I think
4.
that like he has this like, okay, so this ideal woman that I want to subjugate is Bev. And now she's like trying to like free herself from me. Oh, hell no. And I think that's like setting him off on this whole other psychotic tangent.
Yeah. And Kay is the one helping her leave,
Ooh,
you know?
Poor Kay and her damn
You mentioned
face.
Audra. Do we think Audra loves Bill?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, really
Yeah,
good.
that's the
question there.
I think she dislikes him just as much as Tom hates Bev.
No, I'm just segueing.
I don't think she likes him that much.
That's
That's
just
a natural segue.
classic Colburn segue.
Classic CC.
CC, as we call them here. Audra we kind of see a lot of her dealing with the director of the movie. What's his name? Like Freddie or something?
Who I really want
Freddie.
Richard Thomas to play in the new version.
Yeah, can you get Rich? He like cuts. It opens with command. He like cuts his ponytail off.
So we basically see her fly over, and then we watch sort of her rent a car, and then her and Tom are kind of on these parallel journeys. They both stay at hotels, like, I don't know, they stay at the same hotel, and then their cars are parked like nose to
right across
nose.
from each other, yeah.
So
Simpatico.
It's
I don't know.
interesting, yeah, because you have someone who's generally there because they love this person, they're concerned, and they're like, I want to help, I want to figure out what's going on. And you have this other psychopath that's like, well, we already just discussed that.
Yeah.
So, you know, like,
I love the contrast there, but I do love how they are. One would say that they're on the path of the beam. I don't know at this point. So.
well, yeah. I mean, are you guys drawn to Audra? Do you like her? What do we think about her as a character?
I don't think it's. I think she's there to be the supportive wife of Bill Denbrough. I don't think that she necessarily has like a real strong identity.
besides,
you know.
like, I don't know. I also, I like but the interesting fact of how her and Bev are kind of compared by King
Yeah.
a little bit. So I think that's really the only other thing I take away for her.
It's
Yeah.
device written, you know, because again, I think that's probably why he was so drawn to Audra, because deep down his first emotions, I guess we're assuming his first female emotions towards Bev when they were younger, you know.
Yeah, I just don't have a huge, strong connection to her.
Cypher
and,
situation.
Yeah, I found it kind of.
You don't like British actresses?
Well, she's not even British, remember?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
She's lived there for a while, but she's actually American.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So she's on her way to come get her schlubby writer husband.
That loser.
And and so basically, wait, do her and Tom cross paths yet by the end of this?
No.
Yeah, not yet. It happened. Spoiler alert.
Pennywise.
Yeah,
They actually end up together.
Watch out.
Wait a minute.
what if they did?
Oh, God.
Should we move on? Should we talk briefly about the interlude?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
We'll just, I guess we'll probably, I know I have some stuff here that's in this section later in our various later sections, but basically we get another interlude from Mike here where he talks about another dark moment of Derry history, wherein basically, a gang, the Bradley gang, a group of bank robbers, several men and women, basically are hiding out near Derry. They find out, and instead of really alerting the authorities, they basically just wait for them to come in town and then shoot them to hell.
I'll echo what I think it was Mel that said in an earlier episode, that when she was growing up, the least impactful moments of the book were the interludes. Well, I love these interludes.
Yeah.
It really does add something to the story, and to obviously what Derry is, not just how evil Pennywise itself is.
Yeah, I felt the same way whenever I got to an interlude, because I was so wrapped up in the story. I felt like, I don't want to go on this derailed conversation. But man, I would get so wrapped up in these stories
like a
and the
palate
stories they
cleanser.
tell.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And like, and I love Hanlon. I love Mike Hanlon like so much.
Well, his
And-
voice is so great. Like King has a really strong connection to that voice.
But that the whole Bradley gang murder, I felt like at the beginning I was like, I just could care less. But at the end of it, I was so invested and just felt like, oh, this is so creepy. I wish we could see this.
Well, yeah,
you
and
know,
just and the fact that Pennywise, like everyone saw him in a different place.
Yeah.
It's so scary.
And then no one questioned it. They just were like, oh, well, he just didn't want to be seen. So we just figured maybe that's why he was wearing a clown costume.
Yeah.
Or that one guy was like, he was leaning out the window so far, it
floating.
didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that he cast no shadow.
Yeah.
It was just like
Much like the great Oasis
weird.
song. You know, for me though, it was
Waxing poetic.
I always talk about how much I love horror and daylight, and so just imagine just being like the sun shining down, but it's just still there in plain view, oddly like floating, as they say. He's floating outside a window, you know.
And I like it. Yeah, and I like it too because, you know, so many of the older guys were, you know, people who are the fathers or the grandfathers of the characters that we have. I mean, like, you know, Victor Chris's dad is part of it. And
he says like young Zach Denbrough.
Yeah, young Zach Denbrough.
People around.
We see a lot of names that are familiar, and he doesn't need to spell it all out for us. Like, we can make the connections ourselves. And then Keen is the one, the pharmacist, who is actually a much bigger character in this story than I remembered.
Yeah.
He plays a big part in the next section with Eddie. And it's interesting to sort of hear that, like, it's one of those King things that annoys me, where we're already getting like a guy remembering something, and then within the memory, it's another guy telling a story who is remembering something. So it's like that always
sounds like it's like a win through the keyhole situation.
It always drives me crazy in King, but in this, it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
It's just like it's.
I'm so enraptured in this story that's been told, though. You know.
And it's a cool sort of, I wonder if it's maybe like a short story idea that King had, and he just kind of found a way to meld it in here, because it's very creepy.
I think this is used in a different way from even the Black Spot story, because this kind of just talks about, I like what he writes here. He writes, people lied about being at that Bobby Thompson ball game because they wish they had been there. But people will lie to you about being in Derry that day because they wish they hadn't been.
Yeah.
Like, they acknowledge that what they've done is awful. It's not like they're like, we're great people, we're going to...
But would they not do it again?
Yeah, no, they would, you know?
They would, yeah.
And then they would just dismiss it and act like they didn't, you know?
Yeah, very spooky. Any other thoughts, or shall we move on?
I'm ready.
Let's
ready
do
to...
What's the next section, Aaron?
We broke it down. Well, the next section is...
You want to do one of your classic Colburn transitions?
Well, let me just say that, you know, my transitions are almost as good as Paul Sheldon's in the book Misery, when he writes his Misery novels. So I think that serves as a pretty good segue into a section we like to call Misery.
Wow.
There is a classic Colburn segue.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my Misery!
Annie!
Misery is a section where we like to recount things that maybe we didn't enjoy, things that we thought were pretty bad. This was a section that was born out of necessity when we started reading some Stephen King books that we didn't like so much, and we were like, we have no place to talk about these things we don't like. Luckily, it is a good book, so we don't have a lot. But there are some.
I mentioned my good friend the Doberman clown earlier, so we'll go in a circle here. We might end up like circling around the same thing here. But Aisha, what do you have? Anything?
Well, as we all know from my earlier mentions, would be any and everything that Richie would say in his voices.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, so I'm sorry, everyone. I lost my notes in Poland, so the exact page
599.
599.
The grackles
Yeah,
attacked.
let's bring it all the way back. He said 599.
599.
Yeah,
If it doesn't sync, we'll pass the book over
Are
to
you
you.
out of your mind?
Oh God, I can't even. I will not even bother trying to do the imitations.
Oh God, I'm not gonna try to do the voice.
Oh God, no.
That's okay.
What version of the?
Oh, we might have different.
Yeah.
Oh, you
why
do.
don't- Yeah,
You
why don't
do.
you just read mine?
Please, if you want
Oh
to.
Lord. Let's see. And yet again he heard his mouth, but this time it was not his voice or any of his created voices, past or present. It was a voice he had never heard before. Later he would tell others hesitantly that it was the kind of Mr. Jive-ass nigger voice. Stephen King, we have to talk. Loud and proud, self-parroting and screechy.
We're all literally like cringing, like contorting in a certain way. Like
I feel myself dying as I'm trying to say this.
Oh man.
Get off my case, you big old honky clown. He shouted, and suddenly he was laughing again. No shit and no shine, muffa. I got the walk, I got the talk, I got the big bopping cock. I got the time, I got the mime. I'm a man with the plan. Do you feel me dying inside?
oh God.
I can feel the life leaving the room. It's like a Dementor's over here.
I feel like there's like a patch where it's like Richie would later tell his friends he was Bagger Vance.
Yeah. You all get
God.
the point. Yeah.
Yeah, we got. Yeah, it's
all
awkward.
that.
Well, he does end it
Pretty
by
up.
calling him a white-faced bunghole.
Bunghole, yes.
Bunghole.
Well, yeah, it's
Great Rob Zombie album.
so many people talk about like their issues with a specific part of this book that happens in the fifth portion, the fifth chapter that we're going to talk about for sure. But this is something that I did not know. I wasn't ready for because all I had known was the miniseries, and yeah, he does a lot of dumb voices in that.
But you're not able to drop.
But I was not
certain
ready.
bombs on ABC in 1998.
They
Well, yeah.
only did once, and that was when Henry Bowers was trying to cut up Mike Hanlon on the street.
That's
And
right.
They called him.
Yes.
But that was it.
And like so when I always liked Richie, and I still like the character Richie. I just I and definitely now they're updating it, and this is obviously a product of the time that he was trying to capture this what he thought was maybe
Pickaninny
when
voices.
in the 50s this kid that would have been like popular because I don't know it obviously it doesn't work for
We
me.
talk about this all the time on the podcast. This is just a product of its time, and like this would not have been written in 2018.
Well, I feel like if he was friends with Mike, like if I was Mike and my white friend said that, he would get popped in his mouth, told never to do that again, and then we
you would go
done.
beyond beep beep Richie.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
be punch Richie. You know?
One
Pop,
punch
pop,
is
Richie.
all we need.
Actually, my misery is only a couple pages before that. Basically, because I just find wacky evil to be not good,
yeah.
and so it just drives me nuts. But I also just noticed while I was revisiting this just a really bad line, and it's when Richie is engaging with Paul Bunyan, which is a section I do like, but all the rock band stuff is
Yeah.
so
it's a bit
dumb.
heavy.
I kind of just glazed.
Yeah, but there's like one line that I hate. He's like, "What was that Peter Gabriel tune? Shock the Monkey." Well, this monkey had been shocked enough. It was time to catch some Z's and maybe gain a little perspective. It's like, what are you doing? That's bad writing. And then, but then later, he sees like the marquee in front of the city center, and it's like Richie Tozier, man of 1,000 voices, returns to Derryland of 1,000 dances in honor of Trash Mouth's return. City Center proudly presents the Richie Tozier All Dead Rock Show, and it's like Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, blah blah blah. Special guest vocalist Jim Morrison. Welcome home, Richie. You're dead too. And then later, it's just like it's still rock and roll to me. And Richie Tozier's All Dead Rock Show written on balloons, and I'm just kind of like, no, that's so stupid.
If it was just on the balloons, that's fine. 'Cause that happens a couple times in the
yeah,
book.
I guess it's just like it's like that. It's Wacky Ghost, you know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hate Wacky
I hear you.
Ghost.
I get
Yeah, I had a couple of notes for that, and there's a section that only I ever have on my notes called "Rock and Roll King." And it's whenever he mentions cool bands and shit.
So what did he mention?
No, my
Go.
what,
Sorry,
do you have
I thought
misery?
that was your misery. Go.
No. Well, yeah, there was, as well as this other one here. But the one I'm talking about is when, oh God, I'm totally blanking now. Oh, Eddie.
Yeah, the baseball thing.
Eddie's
yeah.
baseball
Don't
thing
like it.
just
Not scary.
doesn't work for me. It wasn't scary.
It's wacky.
And then when we
Yeah.
get to Bev's, when we get to the Kirsch scene, it's even more highlighted to me that how not scary that
Yes.
that section is, and just doesn't work out of all the walking.
It feels
tours.
almost like an afterthought. Like he forgot to write the Eddie section.
And he
It was
just
like,
came back and did that one on the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have the same thing here, man.
Like, how about some creepy baseball?
Mine
players?
mine actually has to do with because all the murders are pinned on Henry, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a kind of a suggestion that maybe Pennywise framed Henry by stealing Veronica Grogan's underwear and putting it in his like bed. And I kept having the image of like Pennywise like tiptoeing around the house with her underwear and like sliding underneath the mattress. Like there's nothing scary. That's way too procedural for me. I like the idea that he just has the knife or like there's something else there, but I don't like the fact that he was possibly framed with evidence. That Pennywise framed him.
Pennywise
Well,
is
I
sitting
actually-
in his like
I don't know.
lair.
I didn't even think of it. I thought that he just actually had this.
No, because they say that it says that might have arrived at that point for some reason. Yeah, they kind of suggest like
I
he was
missed
frowning.
that.
at that.
Yeah.
I wrote that in my notes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And yeah, I've got one of the two of you said too about My Other Misery, but that's really,
Yeah.
I really do like the section a lot. I think it moves really well, and I think that everything that happens, builds momentum and gets us to where we need to go.
Yeah, those were my only things. Any others?
No, I didn't have it specifically written down for this section, but we nailed some of it on the head for sure.
Now that we've been through that, it's time to get even more miserable, but in a good way, because we're going to the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
Ooh, creepy.
Let's get scared, everybody.
I can't wait to talk about this stuff.
Where do we want to start? What do you guys got?
I got something here.
Bring it on.
Let's just kick it off with a bang. I somehow always forget this part of the story, even though I've read it a couple times.
Thinking what you're going to do.
I think much like the losers forget 27 years later. Mike is relaying a tale of one of the kids who've died recently. His mother was hanging clothes in the backyard. She heard sounds of a struggle, heard her son screaming. She ran as fast as she could. As she went up the stairs, she says she heard the sound of the toilet flushing repeatedly, that, and someone laughing. She said it didn't sound human. The child's skull had been crushed. The idea that Pennywise is up there just with a little baby or a little toddler and just drowning it and laughing and having the adult actually hear that,
So spooky.
that is horrifying. And that goes beyond, like, there's nothing wacky about that. You know what I mean? There's nothing,
No,
it's just,
not at all.
There's nothing there to be designed. Like, I don't think that he didn't intend for the mother to hear him laughing. It's just malevolence.
Which is interesting because, mostly it was kids and they always keep talking about it's mostly affecting children and but adults, there's like these little one-offs throughout the story so far that I've heard of like adults hearing or seeing things, but because we're adults, we just like brush it off. And immediately, probably in the beginning, she's like not thinking, and then you hear your child screaming and how do you explain that? Like,
You can't. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You're as an adult, I think you've got so much reason that you have to reason it away. Like,
Think about
things that don't make
this,
sense
too.
just can't be real.
Like, they had to have gone down for that murder, that death. Like, the way that the baby is killed, the parents had to have been like fingered for this thing, right?
I don't remember what the outcome
is.
is.
Yeah,
Did
they
even
don't
talk
go
about
into
it?
it.
Yeah, but they probably were. I mean,
Yeah.
like
Well, it's kinda like the
that's like
Corcoran
that's a
thing.
murder.
The
Yeah,
dad
exactly.
was-
yeah,
The dad was, yeah.
which is even more awful. Ugh.
The curse section has a lot of stuff that's very scary. The thing that really got me, and the thing is, it almost was undercut a little bit because it ended up being called out. But the part that really got me at first, because what really scares me, and you guys talked about this on a previous ep, but is that Pennywise calls himself Bob Gray.
Yeah.
And I find that very scary for some reason.
Because it's so normal.
I know.
But why did they keep referencing that name? Like, is that
I
name
don't know.
particular to Stephen
I mean,
King?
I
Or,
haven't read the book in so long, so I don't know if it comes. And I've got about 200 pages left, so maybe something comes up, but I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I think it's more so just there's something kind of weird and uncanny about it, especially because we know this is not a human. We know it's an entity. It's a being, and it's like that name is so innocuous and so unassuming that there's just something eerie about it.
Well, because think about this: Pennywise the Dancing Clown is a nickname, right? Or it's something, a character he's taken on. Bob Gray is also a nickname of Robert Gray, so it's even like that weird level on top of that. Like if he was just kept going by Robert Gray, maybe it would be unsettling, but it's much more unsettling to just go by Bob Gray.
I mean, maybe it's like Pennywise the Dancing Clown is a persona he stole from somebody like a long time ago, and that person's name was Bob Gray. I love the ambiguity of it because it's very spooky to me, and that's like the kind of thing when I'm reading it in bed at night, that's the kind of stuff that really like makes me shiver. Yeah. So in 578 in my edition, what is this edition? It's not mine. It's the Scribner edition.
It's the one with the big smiling.
I read it on my Kindle, Michael, which has the same page numbers, but I have Michael's here. So page 578, well, that's when she explains it, but earlier, Bev is going through and she finds the dresser, an old dresser that has RG carved into it. And what I love is we first see that, and I immediately thought Robert Gray.
Yeah.
Immediately, because that is something that is so burned in my head. And then I love that she kind of just bypasses it. And then later when Kirsch is kind of, collapsing in her way, she's like, very old, Mrs. Kirsch reminisced over her empty cup, looking slyly at Beverly from her yellowed eyes. Her snaggled teeth showed in that repulsive, almost leering grin. From home with me it came. The RG carved into it, you noticed? And she goes, my father, she said, pronouncing it fodder. And Beverly saw that her dress had also changed. It had become a scabrous, peeling black. The cameo was a skull. Its jaw hung in a diseased gape. His name was Robert Gray, better known as Bob Gray, better known as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Although that was not his name either, but he did love his joke, my fodder. And just the idea of my fodder is very creepy.
Like this Irish kind of-
Yeah, and it's like, but just the way, and I felt like the miniseries actually captured this pretty well, but it's even better in the book is just the way this woman starts collapsing so much right before Beverly's eyes.
Because they go into the whole idea of Hansel and Gretel and the witch in the candy house.
And also it's like, and this is one where the language almost borders on wacky horror, but it works.
Terrifying.
Because it's because it's happening so fast. You know what I mean? Like, and because the things that this woman is saying, they're not silly so much as they are manic and like, they're just terrifying because you feel like you're in the presence of somebody who is completely unhinged from reality.
Well, because then she starts to shout at her. She says, tell your friends I'm the last of a dying race, the only survivor of a dying planet. I've come to rape all the women, rape all the men. It's like just so...
I wrote that down
bracing.
too because, and I don't know if we should talk about it here, maybe save it for later, but just the whole idea of what is Pennywise an alien? Because he makes references like that he is an alien, like in a couple different times, and that's something I find very interesting.
Well, part 4 will definitely dive into that.
So even then, it's like, as I finished part 4, it's like, it's not like it's guaranteed
exactly
that
the ambiguity is still
came
there.
from space, and that's something that I find very, very compelling in this book. But then I had another line from here that just really creeped me out. It reminded me of Tommy Knockers, which I'm very excited for those episodes.
We gotta be on that. As much as I've read that book twice, it's garbage, but I gotta read it again.
I love Tommy. But there was a bit where the cups she saw were white bark that had been carefully looped with blue-dyed frosting. The pictures of Jesus and John Kennedy were creations of nearly transparent spun sugar, and as she looked at them, Jesus stuck out his tongue, and Kennedy dropped a stinky wink. I would usually use the phrase stinky wink in pound cake, but in this context, it freaked me out.
Yeah.
And just the idea of Jesus sticking his tongue out, that whole idea of like corrupting sort of religious imagery is something he does in Tommy Knockers too. And the Becca Paulson short story that ended up being in Tommy Knockers. It's a very eerie thing for me. I mean, maybe that's because I come from a religious background, but it is, that whole idea of corrupting the image of Jesus is something that to me is very demonic and creepy. Yeah. So anyways, love the Kirsch section. All of it is scary, but those were my standouts.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to tail end off your Kirsch stuff. That whole section just freaks me out. And I thought they did a really good job with that in the miniseries. But going back, I really think the fortune cookie sequence in the book is pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I like it too. It's good.
That still really creeps me out.
It seems like they're going to try this again in the new adaptation. I wonder if they're going to be able to pull it off now.
Yeah,
or if they're going to CGI it or something like that. Something that was more scary in this version than in the miniseries is the eye. A fortune cookie that has the eye in it. Because for me, because it was the eye that young Eddie punches. It was like they were slowly remembering those things that scared them, and they were coming out in the cookies, like the beast, like the spidery thing that is basically like it, or just the fact that it's already like invading their minds again.
Yeah.
As soon as they're there, I mean, now they're all together, they're all seeing this. Two scenes I didn't think necessarily worked, but I thought there were things in it that did, was when Ben sees Dracula, but it's not the stage or screen Dracula. It's like true blue vampire.
I actually like that.
I did think that was scary with the razor sharp teeth.
He always makes it a point to say like the werewolves or the mummies or the Draculas. Like this is not what you think of. Like this is not Bela Lugosi or like Lon Chaney. It's like this is the worst thing you can imagine.
The razor stuff is horrifying.
It bites off its own tongue, right?
Yeah,
It
it bites into its gums.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And that's what reminds me of the vampire from the television version of Salem's Lot. Apollo.
Yes. Well, we'll get to that in a second too.
Yeah. And then the other one was actually when Belch Huggins crawls over the fence. That moment.
Oh, I agree.
thought that
because
was
that's
really
before it
His
gets
head
to like
rolls
we're running into people or all goes.
Yeah.
Aisha, did you have anything specifically?
You actually all just took most of my. I mean, like the cursing. I mean, there's so many parts of it that I could.
No, I wanted to read that whole thing.
Yeah, but
The whole
I'm not gonna
section.
go into the whole section. Just reread it. But no, I feel like you guys got most of what I wanted to talk about for me.
I've got a few more. Some we already touched upon, but it's the moment when, like we talked about this earlier, when Ben and the librarian are talking, just a pleasant conversation. All of a sudden, Ben, would you come up here? I was like, was that?
I love that.
So PA
Just,
system.
Ben, can you come up here? And it's just it upstairs, and then starts screaming at him after that. That really caught me off guard. Dan is probably screaming right now. We've got to talk about the Jaws part. The shark.
Yeah.
The shark in the canal.
Who was that though? Who was speaking?
It's I've got. It's guess who Bill hears the story from? Tommy Vicananza, the skateboarding kid. So I wouldn't trust the thing this kid says, first of all. But if he's telling the truth, I'll tell it right now. Tommy's telling a story about this kid who claims to have encountered it. He says, he thinks he saw that shark in the canal. He was up there by himself in Bassey Park a couple of weeks ago, and he said he saw this fin. He said it was 8 or 9 feet tall. Just the fin was that tall, you get me? He goes, that's what killed Johnny and the other kids. It was Jaws. I know because I saw it. So I go, that canal's so polluted, nothing could live in it, not even a minnow. You think you saw Jaws in there? You got toys in the attic, Tommy. Tommy says it reared right out of the water like it did at the end of that movie and tried to bite him, and he just got back in time. Pretty funny, huh, mister? And I think the reason is, like, even though the shark in Jaws obviously looks fake, it still freaks me out, you know? And so just the idea of, as a kid, I was always afraid of that shark. And to just be walking about where you would never expect to see it and have it pop up like that.
Well,
that bothers me. It scares me.
I don't think I'd ever seen like a shark before, like, or a live shark.
Yeah.
So when I saw that movie, I wasn't thinking it was like fake. It didn't look fake to me because I don't know if a shark threw its body on the boat. I don't know. Maybe that would be what it looked like or whatever, you know? But yeah, that's a creepy moment.
And the last thing I have is one of the pyromaniacs at Juniper Hill. King writes, whipping his old dingus so hard that it started to bleed through his fingers, shrieking, try to set the night on fire. That bothered me.
Yeah.
That's
Dingus.
It's hard.
I think
Dingus.
I blocked that one out.
Yikes. Okay, so that's all I've got.
Have the cemetery gates closed?
The
I've
funeral's
got-
over.
Two more things.
Oh,
Just real quick. Bowers and the Ghost Moon creeps me out.
Love it.
It's
Yeah.
still creepy. And then even though I don't think the Doberman clown works, I did think it was creepy because this is something that was not in the other versions, was when like Vic's all stitched together when he crawls out. You know,
I've got that too, yeah.
But then right before he kills the guard, he yells out, "It's time for the circus!" And it's just that really creeped me out because
Yeah.
See, that to me, that's like, I just kill him. Like, why do you have to throw the
well,
time for
it
the
just,
circus thing?
I mean, because even as that guy who doesn't know who Pennywise is,
Yeah.
to yell something like that out as you're coming at, it was so
the
off-putting and
disorientation.
weird.
I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. If
Yeah.
I was the guard, I wouldn't have laughed. I would have been freaked out.
Yeah, but yeah, that is time for the circus. Just really kind of maybe because it's something he's not done ever before. Do you know what I mean? He just kills.
Let me ask you everybody this question: what's scarier, Clown Doberman or Gary Doberman writing it too? The Nun 2's Gary Doberman.
And then the other thing I had written down was just Keen's description of Pennywise at the shooting at the end.
Yes, love it.
And we already talked about it a little bit, but it's just kind of creepy. Just the way he says, like, he wasn't wearing a clown suit or nothing like that. He was dressed in a pair of farmer's bibballs and a cotton shirt underneath, but his face was covered with that white grease paint they use, and he had a big red clown smile painted on and had these tufts of fake hair. Yeah, orange, sort of comical. And that's just really creepy, like the idea that he's dressed a little, just like he's wearing bibballs and everything, but he's still got all that on. It's just creepy. Anything else? I think the sun is rising.
I think we're dropping the dirt on the casket.
Yeah, the sun is rising. We're gonna follow that bright shining beacon in the sky, which we like to call the word processor of the gods.
And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing, whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Here we are.
I've got my typewriter out. I'm ready to look at what I've written.
I love just these beginnings of the sections where I'm like, how do we ease in here? And
because I like half the battle is just getting to the transition.
Yep.
And it's coming out of the transition.
Out of the coming transition is what I usually don't think about. So I usually do something like, ooh, here we are.
Spooky.
It's usually not good. I'll start. I have one on page 542 with Ben. This was just some good writing, I thought. I thought it was just really lovely. So now, standing here in the fading drizzle in front of a trustworthy hardware store that had been a pawn shop in 1958, Freddy Brothers, Ben recalled, the double windows always full of pistols and rifles and straight razors and guitars hung up by their necks like exotic animals. It occurred to him that the kids were better at almost dying than they were at and they were also better at incorporating the inexplicable into their lives. They believed implicitly in the invisible world. Miracles, both bright and dark, were to be taken into consideration. Oh yes, most certainly, but they by no means stopped the world. A sudden upheaval of beauty or terror at 10 did not preclude an extra cheese dog or two for lunch at noon. But when you grew up, all that changed. You no longer lay awake in your bed, sure something was crouching in the closet or scratching at the window. But when something did happen, something beyond rational explanation, the circuits overloaded. The axons and dendrites got hot. You started to jitter and jive. You started to shake, rattle, and roll. Your imagination started to hop and bop and do the funky chicken all over your nerves. You couldn't just incorporate what had happened into your life experience. It didn't digest. Your mind kept coming back to it, pawing it lightly like a kitten with a ball of string. Until eventually, of course, you either went crazy or got to a place where it was impossible for you to function. And if that happens, Ben thought, it's got me. Us. Cold. So I just like that section because I feel like it kind of sums up the book in a way. It sums up sort of, this is how we overcome Pennywise is we don't fall into the traps of adults, which is that we, let our imaginations go away and we become overwhelmed by the things that stretch, reality. Mm-hmm. So just very interesting. Nice little bit of writing there.
I agree. Mine's also probably from that same section with Ben at the library. I read this section when it was probably about 95 degrees here in Chicago at one point. And the joke in Chicago is when it's the wintertime, you always forget about how hot it gets. And when it's the summertime, you always forget about how cold it gets. So reading this section about Ben looking at the library, and there's that tunnel that connects the children's section to the adult, and he says, it was somehow magical in a good way that he had been too young to account for with such mundane things as electric power and oil heat. The magic was that glowing cylinder of light and life connecting these two dark buildings like a lifeline. The magic was in watching people walk through it across the dark snowfield, untouched by either the dark or the cold. It made them lovely and godlike. And because here in Chicago especially, it gets so dark, but then sometimes the mood will reflect off the snow. And people just and the lights just seem brighter. I don't know. No, I got almost nostalgic for the winter. I'm going to regret that in a couple months.
I had that written down too. That
was one of mine.
That same
as well.
What else do you guys got?
I mean, we already covered some of them. A lot of mine was the curse chapter, but you highlighted those moments really well.
Oh yeah.
And there was another section. I mean, the three things was that first chapter that Aisha read about the how the town loved Pennywise. Yeah, I had the 2-year-old boy section was really just uncomfortable for me. And then, the curse stuff. So you guys already nailed it.
I also had on page 599, this is in the midst of the Bunyan stuff. I just thought it was kind of a cool piece of writing. Richie's looking at the Bunyan statue. He says, its eyes were widening, and in those black pupils, each as big as a softball, Richie saw the mad darkness that must exist over the rim of the universe. He saw a shitty happiness that he felt would drive him insane. In that moment, he understood it could do any of these things and more. I just love the phrase shitty happiness.
I think I've used that once or twice in my life.
I've got one more, and this is something that we've actually been teasing a lot about. Like, even though Richie is the way he is, he's still likable.
Yeah,
I really love this, and I kind of connected to some of this. As a kid, he had been a goof-off, a sometimes vulgar, sometimes amusing comedian, because it was one way to get along without getting killed by kids like Henry Bowers or going absolutely Looney Tunes with boredom and loneliness. He realized now that a lot of the problem had been his own mind, which was usually moving at a speed 10 or 20 times that of his classmates. They had thought him strange, weird, or even suicidal, depending on the escape in question, but maybe it had been a simple case of mental overdrive. If anything about being in constant mental overdrive was simple. I thought that was a really good take on not just Richie, but just, the class clown and why that class clown might be the way he is. I like that a lot.
Do you guys have any more? Because I got one more.
I've got two.
Okay, bring it.
We kind of talked about some of the other ones that I wanted to do, but one of them is when they were talking about Stan, or Bill kind of reflects about who Stan is, and in the first edition, it's like $4.99 to $500, and I'm gonna kind of like skip a little bit. Yeah. So he starts with Stan was an ordered person, the kind of person who has to have his books divided up into fiction and nonfiction on his shelves, and then wants to have each section in alphabetical order. I can remember something he said once. I don't remember where we were or what we were doing, at least not yet, but I think it was toward the end of things. He said he could stand to be scared, but he hated being dirty. That seemed to me the essence of Stan. Maybe it was just too much when Mike called. He saw his choices as being only two: stay alive and get dirty, or die clean. Maybe people really don't change as much as we think. Maybe they just stiffen up.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Because that reminds me of, when we're kids, we just think that, just because you're getting older means you're growing up. But I learned as an adult, you don't necessarily grow up.
Similar.
You can hide it better,
Yeah.
And before we move on to your next one, bring back the Stan thing. I really like that where Bev says that she thought maybe that's why Stan killed himself, that he thought that they lost the magic that they needed to defeat it. Yeah. And he knew he was the only one that knew that, and that's why he did it. And that, that was really scary.
Yeah.
The only other one was like really quick. It just kind of stuck with me, and maybe this is like kind of because of like this is what Americans were like in the 1980s. It's when Mike is kind of going over how successful they all are.
Yeah.
And he says, or he asks like how much they put on their tax returns or whatever it was. And he says, they glanced around at each other almost furtively, embarrassed as Americans always seem to be, by the raw fact of their own success, as if cash were hard-cooked eggs and affluence the farts that inevitably follow an overdose of the same.
I like that.
It stuck with me, and I was like, because most Americans I know are like, oh, I make all this money. This is what I do. But that's more of like kind of what we see nowadays. So I'm curious. And when I think about it, when Americans were first like kind of doing that American dream life, there was kind of that little bit of humbleness of like, I make money. I don't,
Instagram selfies and everything else.
Before all that.
Look at me in my plane.
I love this section from the Bowers section, if only because it offers up such a vulnerable portrait of kind of old, shattered Henry Bowers. Page 625. He lay on his side, staring at his nightlight intently. Donald Duck had burned out. He had been replaced by Mickey and Minnie Mouse dancing a polka. They had been replaced with the green glowing face of Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street. And late last year, Oscar had been replaced by the face of Fozzie Bear. Henry had measured out the years of his incarceration with burned out nightlights instead of coffee spoons. Just that little section there, because that's like that whole idea of him being so mentally stunted. This idea, I guess there's always been something. I remember when I was a kid being in kind of a very scary part of Detroit, and walking around, and it was, there was a lot, it was a very not healthy part of Detroit. And there was a mural of like the Rugrats characters, but it was really poorly done. But it took up a whole wall, and they didn't look like the Rugrats characters at all, but that's what they were supposed to be. And I remember it just struck me as very, out of place and strange and uncanny. And this just reminds me, it's like that whole idea of the innocent, sort of the broken innocence being juxtaposed against, kind of a certain violence or corruption I just found it very striking. So
that was actually one of my favorite parts too.
Yeah, I love that.
Lights. Yeah.
And also I had a lot of, those kind of nightlights when I was young. And
I thought you were saying you have them now.
Well, I had them.
I have an Oscar the Grouch nightlight.
I will here admit that I probably had them longer than I probably should have.
1920.
I still have them.
Okay.
Well, I'm thinking about getting.
It's good you're here.
I'm definitely gonna look into getting a Pennywise nightlight.
Oh Jesus!
So that when I head to the bathroom at 2 a.m., I can be greeted by Bob Gray.
Maybe instead of prowling the children's section at Barnes and Noble, so just get a nightlight of Pennywise next time for a gift.
Has
never go
the
to the
word
bathroom.
processor run out of paper?
I think we're going to be moving on to computers.
Well, we've been working hard on this word processor. We've earned ourselves a treat, and that treat is a nice slice of pound cake.
After all you've been taught, everyone in bad, Mama. Everything in the sin.
Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven.
He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him.
Now,
Mom.
Randall, you said you have a couple because I came up really short. There was one. I mean, I couldn't even do it. That whole sequence where Kirsch is yelling at Bev is just.
Well, that's not funny.
And that's what I'm
It's like-
saying.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to. I couldn't even.
I've got
read it.
one. So I'm so excited I dropped my pen.
Bring it on. It might be similar to mine, but
Young Ben. All right.
Okay.
Do you want to read it?
Take it. I think I know.
Well, all I had to say was Young Ben. This is upon seeing probably like another fifth grader's underwear for the first time. I
High
think.
school girl.
Oh, I was a high school. Oh, it was a high school girl. He was older. She was older. He could remember sitting at a table in the children's library and thinking of that unexpected view for perhaps as long as 20 minutes, his cheeks and forehead hot. A book about the history of trains opened and read before him. His penis, a hard little branch in his pants. A branch that had sunk its roots
Oh, God.
all the way up into his belly.
no.
Never look at trees the same.
Is that the second time like roots has been used in a sexual way? Wasn't roots used earlier on in the in this? What was it? What was the expression? It wasn't roots.
One of
or root?
one
Was
of
it
the
root?
one of the bullies or Henry says nobody suggests that I suck the root.
Yeah, root. So root has been used multiple times in it. Okay, as a sexual term. Okay.
You get assaulted by a tree.
Oh, wait, what's happening?
Literally right out of the gate, I had one, and it's not a big deal, but it just kind of like, I thought it was kind of a lovely section, and then it ends with kind of a moment where I was
Like
like,
a boner.
come on. And so it's Bill waking up, in the hotel, and it says the telephone is ringing, bringing him up and out of the sleep too deep for dreams. He groped for it without opening his eyes, without coming more than halfway awake. It had stopped ringing just then. He would have slipped back down into sleep without a hitch. He would have done it as simply and easily as he had once slipped down the snow-covered hills in McCarran Park on his flexible flyer. You ran with the sled, threw yourself onto it, and down you went, seemingly at the speed of sound. You couldn't do that as a grown-up. It racked the hell out of your balls. And it's like, I'm enjoying this section. I'm just like...
It's like an America's Funniest Home Videos.
Why do you
joke.
gotta add that at the end? And then later, this is just a moment that made me kind of go, Mike, because Mike was talking.
Michael?
And he goes, the first of the new murders, if you'll allow me that rather grisly conceit, began on the Main Street Bridge and ended underneath it. The victim was a gay and rather childlike man named Adrian Mellon. He had a bad case of asthma. But it was just rather childlike. Like, we met Adrian Mellon earlier in the book, and I wouldn't describe him as childlike.
No, I wouldn't describe
and
him
it
childlike.
very much feels slightly homophobic to say that.
Right?
And
You know what? It was 1985, and
I
it was a small
understand.
town Derry.
They didn't know how to talk about it. I guess.
Yeah, I guess
I
not.
just had that moment where I was like, Mike, you didn't need to add that. You're talking about somebody who was brutally murdered.
You're like, I hope you die.
And then my last one, and I'm surprised you guys didn't write this down because this has been oogling like a 15-year-old girl.
This probably would be like, I probably read this and
I
thought
think it
somebody
led
else
to
will do
that.
it.
I feel like it leads to what
It could have led to mine.
Okay,
It must have led to
he
mine.
goes, for one thing, it proved he was still an adult, and the fact that the girl was clearly braless under her thin Western style shirt was also more relief than turn on. This girl is underage, by the way. If proof that this was 1985 and not 1958 was needed, the clearly limbed points of her nipples against the cotton of her shirt was it.
I chose to just ignore that whole section.
It was just like,
underage
it's
part.
just like literally like Ben, handsome.
It's like Ben licking his lips.
Handsome late 30s guy licking his lips.
Randall, I'm missing these things because just like the people of Derry have just kind of lived in this for so long, they start just kind of accepting and missing this. We've lived in this section of pound cake or a course of I don't know how many books, and now I've just kind of like can't. I'm not even seeing it anymore.
I am a pound cake warrior. I am committed to finding as many slices of pound cake as I can.
I just kind of remember saying, "Oh Ben."
Oh Ben. No, it's like I am.
Randall hears the call of Eddie Van Halen's
I'm so
guitar.
I hear the first notes of it every time I stumble across some pound cake, and I highlight it in my Kindle and I put it in my little document immediately.
Okay.
So okay, that's all the pound cake I have.
That's all I've got,
Are
too.
you guys full?
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Are we full?
I had a big dinner.
I indulged too much.
Now that we're all bloated, shall we wander into a little place we like to call King's Dominion?
There's another world out there. I know there is.
Welcome to King's
I
Dominion.
like how we could only enter if we're bloated. Everybody have a big tummy?
It's I only have one here, but
I got a lot.
This is where I'm good at pound cake. I usually tend to miss a lot of the Dominions, and that's where I rely on the Gerber brothers.
Yeah.
often.
Well, we can go a little
bad
circle
at
if you
this.
want to, or back and forth, whatever you want to do.
Well, I'll just jump on the one. I only have one, so I'll just jump on it. Let me bring it up here. Page
Probably
508 in the
It's
Scribner.
probably the one. He's probably gonna read the only one because I'm not as good as you guys.
Oh,
I
I'm
wouldn't
not.
catch
This is
everything.
like my weak point on the pod too.
Okay.
I'm bad at noticing these. So page 508. It can't be Beverly cried. I would have read about it in the paper, seen it on the news when that crazy cop killed all those women in
Yep.
Castle Rock, Maine, and those children that were murdered in Atlanta.
I got that.
Yeah, so
That's
that's
fine.
pretty blatant one
Yeah.
there. And
I felt pretty proud of myself for recognizing. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's the
I-
only one I have. So, and then, but you guys have more.
Yeah.
And I hope you have some room for 3 sevens.
I've got one.
Okay,
Okay.
that's good. That's enough.
But you want to go first, Mac?
Well, for King's Dominion,
Yeah.
the next one I have, page 515 in the Scribner edition. They mention the town of Haven.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
There's a lot of. I feel
There's
like
a lot of
there's a couple
Haven
Haven
talk.
mentions.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think Richie or Ben has an aunt there.
Yeah, one of the murder suspects was killing deer in Haven as well, I believe, yeah.
What about you, Justin? I have another one.
There's
but
actually
go for
something meta here more than anything else.
it. Yeah, and I have. Yeah.
King writes, this is Bill's take on Ben when he's mid-story about losing weight and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Bill said, all that sounded wonderful, Ben, but the writer in me wonders if any kid ever really talked like that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we talked about like Danny Torrance sounding like he was about 15 or 16 when he's 5 or
Oh
whatever.
yeah. It's
I
the
thought that was a fun little
weird-
commentary.
weirdly written character. Yeah.
Something else, Mac?
Yeah. On
It's like
page
tag team.
598.
Boom.
Pennywise says, before removing the mote from thy neighbor's eye, attend the beam in thine own, the clown intoned.
And I have that too.
A little beam within the Bible.
And then the only other thing that I had that I thought was a fun little room 237 was that at one point they mentioned the Mouseketeers, and one of them is Jimmy Dodd.
Probably related to the old Frankie. All right, I've got some. I think I'm actually pretty proud of myself.
Yeah?
Let's hear it.
Let's do this.
We'll be the judge
Okay.
of that.
By the sound of your applause, I will know if I was a good boy, if I was bloated enough to enter the King's Dominion. Okay, first, so the vampire Ben sees is described as such: Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee or Frank Langella or Francis Lederer or Reggie Nalder. Reggie Nalder played Barlow in the Salem's Lot miniseries.
Oh, very nice.
Thank
Did
you very
not know
much.
that.
Bev's old house in Derry is 127 Lower Main Street. Rearrange the numbers. 217.
237.
Yeah, I know, but
I'm kidding.
son of a bitch. It was a little applause,
sorry.
applause.
Yeah, Randall's giving a little golf clap over there.
This might be my pièce de résistance. All right, here we go. Do you know who else is living in Bev's old building, the other floors? On the third floor is Starkweather, and King was obsessed
wow.
with the killer Charles Starkweather.
Yeah.
On the second floor, Burke, a family member of Matt Burke's from Salem's Lot, probably.
Oh, God.
I'll
I thought you were going to go
give you the
aliens.
first one. I'll give you the first one.
All right, and of course, thank you very much. And John, we talked about one of the jerk security guards is Kuntz. That's all I
jerk
got.
store?
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Ran out of you.
Well, speaking of
here
more
we go.
King's Dominion, there are some things that we glean along the beam.
Let's
and
hear it.
This beam is the path of Matter and the Turtle. I'll go first, Justin.
I've got some too.
Okay, page 495. Richie asks Bill how long he's been turtle waxing his head.
Heyo.
Yep, I got that. I've got when the word chud first comes to Ben, at least comes back to him.
While he's walking.
He looked down at the sidewalk, and for a moment he saw the shape of a turtle chalk there, and the world seemed to swim before his eyes. That's it.
Yeah, right after that, he says he shut them tightly, and when he opened them, saw it was not a turtle, only a hopscotch grid half erased by light rain, chud.
Chud.
That's all.
I was like, and go on.
I am
ready.
I am not on the episode on the Chud episodes, so but I'm still reading because I'm very, very interested in revisiting that stuff because I feel like I haven't in so long.
Same here. I mean, I'm actually on the last 2 episodes, but I would have read the whole thing anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I finished the book a while ago, and I can't wait to get to chapter 5 and talk about all that stuff. It's really interesting.
Or part 5.
to me,
Part
yeah.
5.
I haven't gotten to that part yet, but I'm excited.
Because this is your first time, Aisha, and this is your first time, Mac.
Yeah.
Yes, this is my first time reading
Exciting.
the book. Yeah.
So, but next week we've got not part 5, but part 4, which is July of 1958. Man, some big stuff happened.
And don't worry, I've got some awesome baseball connections to talk about in part 4 for all of you big This Week in Baseball fans. So,
well, you'll get your own section for
you
that.
got that goddamn right.
You'll just be talking to yourself.
Everybody will be like, can we leave the room while you're talking about the Red Sox?
We've got some great Bowers. We got some great Eddie. Young Eddie it's kind of his. I feel like it's kind of like his part. Like
I love his part.
It's great.
Yes.
It's so good. And then we get some Patrick Hockstetter.
Yes, we do.
Very spooky. And I'm just finishing up that section. Oh wait, no, I finished it last week, so I'm well into Chud now, and it's very exciting. So yeah, please tune in next week. And if you haven't listened to our other episodes yet, for some reason, please go back and do that. And while you're waiting, why not go back and listen to our old episodes like Thinner, which Aisha was on previously, and
Roadwork.
And Roadwork
that I was on, unfortunately.
Mac was on, but it wasn't very good. And but you can listen to the episode because I think we make some good points about why it's bad. And
well, that's the great thing about this podcast is that you can listen to any of our book episodes at any time. You know,
it's true
because it doesn't really date.
Let me just say this: you probably haven't listened to our winner. What is that? The last one or the breathing method episode. We know that you probably haven't listened to it.
But you should.
But you should. It's just me, Mac, and Justin. And you know what? We had a great time.
And we tell some spooky stories at the end ourselves.
We can listen to it together, you and I.
There you go.
I always tell people to listen to that episode because I'm like, if there's one you haven't listened to, it's probably the one episode we devoted to the story in different seasons that nobody reads.
And it's funny about that is, once again, we put just as much effort into that as any of the other ones.
We totally
we
do.
do.
So please listen to those. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever you use to listen to us. Some people get mad. We talk about Mighty Mighty Boss Tone sometimes. So they leave us bad reviews. So we need your help to overcome their badness. Please leave us a review. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. And also, I don't know, just like stick around. Keep being supportive because we need you. We need you, listeners. You make us whole. In the meantime,
long days and pleasant nights. Goodbye.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
You've made it to the end of another bloody, disgusting podcast. Congratulations. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody, disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.